All right, let's get started. All right, thank you all for being here today. This budget hearing on the proposed 2025-26 budget and work session and budget hearing of the Board of Education for May 1st, 2024. All items being considered this evening are posted on the PPS website under the Board and Meetings tab. This meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV Services website and on Channel 28 and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the district website for replay times. Welcome. Thank you all for being here and being part of PPS and being involved. We are so excited to be holding tonight's public hearing on the budget in beautiful Grant High School. I want to thank Principal McGee for hosting us this evening. Where is Principal McGee? I was going to ask if he would like to say a few words this evening. Thank you.
Again, I'm Principal James McGee. I just want to take this opportunity to welcome our PPS Board of Directors, our Student Director, and Superintendent Dr. Armstrong. We're excited to be able to share our space with you tonight. We left a small gift for you on the table, a Grant cap. JJ, we won't tell anybody if you put it on. Again, just, welcome, tonight, and we're excited to host you.
Thank you, Principal McGee. Before we started, I want to share a few reminders to ensure safety. We ask that you please find a seat and keep the walkways clear. Be considerate to those around you and keep signs below chin level. We ask that you do not hang or attach signs, banners, or posters to any object in the room or on any walls. We have interpreters with us this evening. I would like to ask them to come forward at this time, introduce yourselves in the language that you can interpret.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Juan Loyola y estoy aquí como intérprete de español. Si alguien necesita interpretación, tenemos dispositivos en la parte de atrás para que puedan escuchar al mismo tiempo que ellos hablan. Muchas gracias.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Павел, я буду переводчик на русском языке. Если кому-то надо перевод, пожалуйста, подойдите там сзади и получите наушники. Спасибо.
来宾好，我是中文翻译，如果有需要的话，我叫 Olivia， 中文翻译，谢谢。
Sĩ Hòa Quán, anh thúc thông dịch cho Vietnamese.
magacaygu cumar wiilhawd ciddii afka soomaali ku hadashay u baahan turjumaan bannaanka ha soo baxdo ay ugu timaado.
My name is Yi Liang. I'm a Chinese interpreter, speak Cantonese and Mandarin. 你好，我係Yi，我講廣東話同埋普通話翻譯。
Thank you all. If anyone should need their assistance, I believe our interpreters are hanging out in that side of the auditorium in the back. We also have childcare available this evening if you need it. It's located in the library, which is located just to your right if you are exiting the auditorium. All right, let's get started. Tonight, the board is now convened as the Budget Committee. The purpose of tonight is to hear public comment on the proposed budget and to have an opportunity to ask questions and request further clarification on the proposed budget. Before we move on to public comment, I would like to ask to have a brief overview of the proposed budget. Dr. Armstrong, could you please introduce the staff?
Thank you, Chair Wing and members of the committee and Dr. Armstrong and everyone for your time this evening and attention to this matter. Some of the materials we'll be covering tonight have already been shared with the board on April 22nd as we proposed the budget. So all of those materials are included in this slide deck in the appendix for anyone who is interested in that. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So this is reflecting a little bit on the approach to our budget development this year. So we began to communicate early and often. This budget situation, it's very unfortunate, but it's not a surprise. It's been coming for the last couple of years, and as we've addressed budget shortfalls the last couple of years, and it looks like we have a structural deficit in our budget, and we'll continue to do that. So under Dr. Armstrong's charge, we've been communicating early and often and moving from our projected numbers to our actual figures as they become realized. This year, we've also really opted to provide some flexibility and stability to our systems based on giving our administrators a little bit more flexibility around how they use some of their FTE. As our student enrollment declines, they're making the most of the FTE in their buildings. And so in order to do that, we had to provide some flexibility through our staffing manual. We've also been really centered on student outcomes. So throughout, we've been focused on the school board's goals and the strategic plan, really focused on literacy, math, 8th grade readiness, and graduation. The final thing here is fostering fiscal sustainability. So as we move through this process and we make our decisions, we have to shift away from one-time budget closing strategies, which would be use of reserves, use of fund balance, into more sustainable reductions, which are impacting our staffing levels. Our district is 80% staff in terms of our operating budget, and so when reductions are needed, staffing is impacted. This slide has been shown throughout several presentations, and it's just a constant reminder of the situation we're in. And I think many of the folks here that came tonight recognize the rising costs of business and just living. So whether we have services, supplies, transportation costs, utility costs, and staffing for sure, those costs are on the rise. Most recently, we have had, last fall, we learned of a significant increase to our PERS rates, which is our Public Employee Retirement System rate, and that's been incorporated into our proposed budget. We do have limited revenue available to us, especially as we're coming down off of those post-pandemic relief funds and our declining enrollment, which drives our funding for not just the state school fund, but also our student investment account, high school success, and other major grants. Those funds are shrinking while our costs continue to rise. So this was a slide we showed as we proposed the budget. It's a comparison by major fund type, the different years. So the current year that we're in, and that's our adopted budget that you would see in our proposed budget document, next to our proposed budget. So overall, the budget, if you look at all funds, there is a reduction of 15%, but the majority of that is a spend down of the capital project funds that we have been using to work on projects. You can see the general fund, it actually increases slightly between the 2 years, but that increase is not keeping track with costs. So for school staffing, we have some changes that have been applied through the formula, our equity formula across all schools. So even though there weren't targeted class size increases, there were changes in staffing due to declining enrollment. We have implemented targeted blended classrooms at the 4th and 5th grade levels, which is not a strategy we've used in the past, but where, again, our schools are declining in enrollment, that makes the best use of the teachers in that school. And our program staff are working on a plan to support teachers who are shifting to that model. Again, flexibility for our principals to really have a bigger say about the staff that they have and how they're being used to serve the current needs of our students. That was important to us as well. This is a great chart that was shared that shows our projected elementary class sizes. This is just elementary. So on the left-hand vertical, you can see the number of elementary classrooms that we have. And as we move across the bottom, that is the class size that we're targeting. It will be slightly different when our students actually show up into our schools, but this is what we have for based on our current enrollment. The different colors represent the different grade levels, and 98% of our classrooms at the elementary level are at or below our target class size. So that is a pride point that we've been able to maintain that. Central office staffing, excuse me, has been impacted pretty significantly as we moved from our first iteration of recommendations to the second, which we brought back to you after pretty significant feedback from generally all of our populations that we interact with and survey. The personnel reductions are for central office positions, but also central service positions. So those include some that do more directly serve our students, although they are dispatched from the central office. The non-personnel reductions are focused in contracted services, professional development, and travel. And so currently we're under a significant contract review to ensure that we are getting the best value from our current contracts. So this is our most recent iteration of the reductions that have been made as we move into 25-26. As we came into late spring, we began to look farther out and the impact to 26-27 school year, and recognize that given the size of the variables that are in play right now, there's a minimum of $32 million in reductions that would be required in 26-27. In an effort to minimize the impact of those reductions, we're trying to take some early steps now to have savings in 25-26 and 26-27 to kind of provide a little bit more stability and kind of an off-ramp for some services. And of course, protect the student experience in the schools. This is our adoption timeline. We've shared it in multiple places at multiple times, but you know that we are here tonight for the board hearing. We have a significant turnout. That's very exciting. And then we'll continue to have additional discussion and reflection and then move towards adoption on June 10th. This budget has to be adopted prior to implementation on July 1st. Any questions?
Thank you. I think now we're going to move to public comment. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, now we are going to be, next we're returning to our public comment for the 2025-26 proposed budget. Before we begin, just want to review a few guidelines for public comment. First, the board thanks you for being here. Public comment provides us valuable insight and also helps inform our work, so thank you for being here. Tonight, we have planned our public comment until 8 p.m. This presentation went a little longer than expected, so we will go a little bit over past 8, because I want to give a chance for everyone who showed up to have a chance to speak. And then we will be moving to a board discussion, and that's when we, as a board, will have an opportunity to ask questions that we may have. In an effort to make sure that we have as many school communities as possible have a chance to provide comment, we are calling on one person per school until we make sure that all the communities have a chance to be represented at least once before calling on someone else from that school community. So again, it's effort to be as fair as possible. It's not perfect, but that's what we're trying to do. If you did not get a chance, or if you would like to add additional comment, you are always welcome to submit your comments in writing and email them to publiccomment@pps.net. When you begin your comment, make sure that you clearly state your name and spell your last name, indicate your school community. You will have 2 minutes to speak. You'll hear a sound indicating that you have 1 minute left. I am going to be pretty strict about the 2 minutes, so if you're providing public comment and I'm interrupting you, please don't take that as rudeness. The reason trying to keep it strict about 2 minutes is we're trying to get everyone a chance to be able to speak tonight. So I'm going to be pretty strict about that. For board members, this is also our chance to be hearing public comment. Where our role here as a board is to be here and listen to the feedback that you have to give.
I asked for this earlier today, but I'm wondering if we can be sent the list of people who signed up, just in case not everybody lists. I'd like to know who signed up for public comment.
It was emailed earlier this afternoon. I can try and resend it.
Yeah, we had our email.
I'm not seeing it.
It looks like it came in at 11:41.
Do any of those work? Not seeing it, but I'll look for it.
All right, let's get started with public comment. Ms. Bradshaw, who do we have signed up for public comment tonight?
We have Representative Daniel Nguyen.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here. For the record, I'm Representative Daniel Nguyen, representing Lake Oswego and Southwest Portland. I'm here to testify in support of continued funding for the Vietnamese dual language immersion program in the 2025-26 Portland Public Schools budget. We're so thankful to have full funding for this important program. Today, we're here to reemphasize its strengths and why we support it. I'm here as a dad, a legislator, and as a business owner. And first and foremost, as a dad of 2 daughters, I'm grateful that we have programs like this where they can learn about their heritage and culture. When we hear and see our language and culture being taught in school, it validates our experience as something that is worth learning and studying, not just for Vietnamese Americans, but students of all backgrounds. Because of VDLI, kids like my daughters have the opportunity to be fluent in multiple languages, including Vietnamese. DLI programs establish an infrastructure that provides a sense of belonging, a venue for learning for students of all backgrounds, and a celebration of culture. As a legislator, it's been my great honor and great pleasure to be a part of multiple Vietnamese celebrations recently that were well attended by all levels of government. Earlier this year, I was thrilled to be part of a Tết celebration where hundreds of community members came to McDaniel High School to celebrate Lunar New Year. And tomorrow, I'm carrying House Concurrent Resolution 34, designating April 30th as Vietnamese American Remembrance Day on the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. And in fact, tomorrow we're having students from VDLI come to perform the opening ceremonies at the state capitol. On so many levels, we're putting our culture front and center, and it's so exciting to see, but it hasn't always been this way. VDLI is a huge part of connecting people outside of the Vietnamese community with our culture and reconnecting and reinforcing Vietnamese Oregonians with their roots and heritage for generations to come. Though relatively still young in its lifespan, VDLI is a critical part of celebrating the Vietnamese community in Oregon and sharing with others our strength and history. Our schools are more than just institutions for learning. They're places where our kids interact with other kids and share about our values. Again, I thank you for your support, and I hope that you'll continue to recognize the importance of this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Nguyen.
Virtually, we have Representative Tui Tran.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm in my car right now, so it's hard to read my comments, but as a former Parkville School District board member and the current state representative of House District 45, which includes Grant High School, McDaniel High School, as well as Roseway Heights and Rose City Park, they are, at least the 3 schools are part of the VDLI program, the Vietnamese Dual Language Program. In PPS, you have a lot of programs that are unique, like all the language immersion programs, to just name one program, but they allow kids to drive. Those students are excited about school, they're doing well, they're thriving, and going to school is something they look forward to. I encourage you to invest in programs that help children thrive, get them excited to come to school, and create a community that can use the best practices of these immersion, language immersion programs in our classroom at large, because they work, and that we need to continue funding to expand the best practices that are in the emerging language program so that all kids can benefit. Better reading score, better math score, eagerness to come to school and participate in the school as a community. So, Chair and members of the committee, I hope you will continue to invest in programs such as the Vietnamese Dual Language Program, but there's also Chinese, Spanish, etc., that is a gem in our Portland Public School District, and continue to support the kids that are, and families that are in those programs, and maybe expand the best practices that made these programs so successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tran. There's just a quick reminder, if you are giving public comment or if you haven't and you still would like to submit or submit the rest of your comment and didn't have a chance, please feel free to email them at publiccomment@pps.net. Thank you. Who do we have next?
Chair Wong, would it be helpful if I called up multiple people at a time to come forward and?
Oh, let's do 2 at a time.
Okay.
You have 2 mics.
Okay. We have Angela Bonilla and Nikki Kaufman.
Hello, my name is Angela Bonilla. I am the president of the Portland Association of Teachers, and I am here to voice some of the concerns and frustrations that I've heard from our educators and from our community. One piece of history that I want to make sure to give to contextualize a little bit of my remarks is that when I first was elected, the spring before I started my term in PPS in 2022, we saw almost 100 educators cut from our schools. So we have been experiencing cuts year after year after year. Even when we had ESSER funds, even when we had increases in supports, we were seeing educators cut from classrooms and from buildings. We are at a point where this is untenable. I equate it to like there is no more meat, we're cutting straight into the bone. We are demanding that our district, that our school board pass a budget that reinstates the 25% that was preemptively cut from Title funds that are going back to our schools. This could help especially our Title I schools being able to support some of the high needs that will be coming into their buildings. We're also asking that if there is a May adjustment on May 15th that provides more funds to our school district, that those be allocated directly to schools and student-facing positions. Lastly, the concern that came from my membership that I cannot step back from this mic without stating is a frustration when we have called for cuts to central office, seeing those cuts be coupled with a pay raise for certain administrators. We heard from this board state, you know, we can't expect folks to do more with less, and yet that is what educators are expected to do every single day. We do not get an increase in our salaries when year after year our classes are crammed or the number of schools that we have to work at increases. And with over 100 educators, almost 150 educators who do not know where they will be next year, who still do not have an assignment, this is a dire situation that we're in emotionally, and I implore that this board look at any other way to bring funds back into our schools to support our students and our educators in doing what we want to do every day, which is serve. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bonilla.
Thank you to Grant High School and the board for hosting this event. My name is Nikki Kaufman. I'm one of the field reps for Portland Federation of School Professionals. This is my daughter, Runa. I am here on behalf of our classified staff, over 100 of which have been cut for the next school year. That includes our entire language access specialist team. They provide federally mandated and crucial language access services, translation, interpretation services for the district. Again, that's federally mandated under Title VI of the Civil Rights of 1964. They follow our educational assistants. Over 30 of them have been cut for next year. I find it hard to be optimistic when I see the district saying that their priorities for this upcoming budget are reading proficiency, safe and supportive schools, college and career, post-secondary and graduation readiness, when they're cutting vital and integral support staff that help achieve those goals. That's our career and college coordinators, again, our kindergarten EAs, our language access services that help bring our multilingual families and communities into the school and contribute and be a part of their students' education. I am deeply disappointed that we continue to see the prioritization of contracts, private vendors, over public employees. The print shop was shut down last year as a cost-cutting measure that I've seen now looking at the budget for next year, and as Julia Brim-Edwards so rightly pointed out last board meeting, it's costing twice as much this year to outsource to Pacific Office Automation. And I'm hearing now that, as I'm sure you're aware, that the school district intends to outsource to Hillsborough School District's in-house print shop next school year instead of bringing back our print shop. That equipment is gathering dust in the POA warehouse. The staff are still within their recall rights. You can bring back the print shop, and I challenge you to do so if you're so concerned with cost-saving measures. It's costing you twice as much to outsource to yet another private vendor. Like, what spending freeze are we talking about here? I just saw $1,900 in Ingalinas come through the PEC this morning for 6 people. It makes no sense. The mismanagement of the budget.
Okay, could you finish up?
I try so hard every day to be there for our members. I don't see that happening at the district level when you are paying so much for leadership who are non-existent.
I'm sorry, but time's up.
I want to see something better happening
Thank
for
you.
next school year for my child's future.
Thank you. Could you, oh, she left. Never mind. I miss what school she came from.
I think we should ask.
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you remind me what school you represent or come from? All right, thank you. All right, next two.
Ann Cherry and Bodan Kashuba.
Yeah, again, just a quick reminder, it's 2 minutes. When you see the yellow light, it means you have 1 minute left, and then the red light means it's 2 minutes up. I'm interrupting. If I interrupt you, I'm trying to make sure we have time to fit everybody in. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Bodan. I'm from Ukrainian. I speak 3 more languages, Ukrainian, English, and Russian. I go to the McDaniel High School, and every time when I need help in translation or interpretation, Miss Olha solves me or comes in person to help. Miss Olha helps me in the school during field trip or school events. Every time I go to the field trip, Miss Olha helps me when I don't understand everything in English. Last Friday I went to the college visit with my friends. She kept explaining what the speakers said and what we needed to go to the college. When my parents need help with the clinic appointment, attendance, or local community support, my parents call Miss Olha and went to her, continuing to be with her like she has been since I started going to McDaniel High School. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ann Cherry is virtual. I tried to move her in, but I was unable to, so I'll loop back to her. Catherine Tucker and Emma Pate. Okay, is Emma here? I see Ann Cherry, so I'll have her get started. Ann, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead and provide your comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm just watching my phone because my little kid is at the childcare, and I'm reading my comments. I'm Emma Patti. I am a parent of an incoming PPS kindergartner. I also wrote a novel called Tilt that deals with earthquake risk here in Portland, and I recently wrote an article for Willamette Week about the seismic risk at the brick schools here in Portland. As some of you know and some of you don't know, we have dozens of schools that are not seismically prepared for an earthquake, and thousands of children go to school in these buildings every day. And I wanted to just read a small piece of the article. Here's what will likely happen if you are inside an unreinforced masonry building when a major earthquake hits. The wave-like shaking will cause the mortar holding the bricks together to crumble and crack. The brick walls will peel away from the building, collapsing onto the lawn or street. Depending on the structural elements of the building, the roof and upper floors could end up without walls to support them, and they would collapse on anyone still inside below. Even scarier, the described scenario could happen with a smaller earthquake. And for a school like Beverly Cleary, which is one of the most dangerous schools in Portland, certainly, it could even be a full collapse. And so I've spoken to first responders all over the world, and so many of them have told me that this is a lost cause and that nothing is going to change until an earthquake hits and these buildings kill school children, and then we will rebuild to be protected against an earthquake. And so I'm here because I care deeply about this topic and because I want to implore all the parents and community members here and all of you that we prioritize this issue, that we prove these people wrong, and that we show that we can take this issue seriously before the earthquake comes, and protect the children that are inside. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Tucker, Tucker, and I'm the teacher librarian at Marysville School. I am here today on behalf of my community of core enrichment educators. These are the educators who teach subjects like art, music, PE, and library. Core enrichment educators deserve better. Every year, our jobs are on the chopping block. This year, we were told we were safe from the cuts. However, because PPS is inflating class sizes, this gives an excuse to cut our FTE again. This is because last year our FTE was cut into 0.2 increments, coinciding with days of the week. So when there are fewer sections of classes per grade level, because students are being consolidated, core enrichment educators don't need to be teaching as many classes per week per this new FTE formula. Thus, we are being cut again by 1 or 2 days a week. Many of us are already working in at least 2 buildings. Because of the cuts and larger class sizes, some might now have to work in more. This is detrimental to our students because they can't form a good relationship with the teacher who is only in a building 1 day a week. This is also detrimental to these programs because educators are having to teach and plan for multiple different populations of students. I don't know how much longer core enrichment educators are willing to be treated like this. Soon they will start leaving and there will no longer be any programs. There are already core enrichment educators on leave because the workload is too much, which is causing the classes to be taught by a rotation of substitute educators who are not necessarily trained in these areas. This once again demonstrates how these 0.2 FTE increments are ruining these programs and hurting our students. And I also want to point out that our school counselors' FTE is formulated in the same way, and though it's not my expertise, I really don't think students can form the important relationship they need with a mental health professional that's not in a building every day of the week. We are not just numbers on a page. We are people with needs and workload thresholds that need to be upheld. Our students and schools deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ann, Cherry, you want to go now?
Can I make a comment? Can I make a comment?
Can you hear me?
We wait. Well, I wanted to catch the representative before he left. Yeah, I wanted to speak before you left. I really appreciate you coming to testify, you know, for the continuation of the programs. I also want to ask you, and I'm hoping you'll be an advocate too for us down in Salem as well, when we're talking about the QEM and getting that funding for the districts that you guys say we need to have in order to provide that quality education, so that way we wouldn't be having these conversations around keeping certain programs, because if we can get the QEM, we wouldn't have this conversation right now. So I'm begging you to make sure that you are advocating for our QEM down in Salem just as you are here tonight. I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, virtually we have Ann Cherry.
Thank you for inviting us to speak tonight and to review the budget. My name is Ann Cherry. I'm a parent to a first grader at Arleta Elementary, and I myself am a graduate of PPS. As I was looking through the budget, I noticed that as part of the bond spending, in addition to the $400 million for construction that we have in there, we also have $115 million set aside for architects and for management services. And that seems like a really big number as we're talking about these extraordinarily painful cuts to make it to 40 million on the general fund side of things. And I, as average at average construction costs for high schools in the United States, with the planned size of these schools, that could make almost 8 of our planned Jefferson high schools. And I urge the board to keep looking at that cost per square foot and why our prices are so high. This city wants to support Portland kids. And if there is any other way to use some of those funds, even before the next bond, to benefit students today, whether it's to compensate in some way, repairs, maintenance for some of that 40 million, or seismic upgrades for schools at risk. Thank you again for having us.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next two.
Maitian Kent and Ginger Hussar.
Sorry, what's the issue? Yeah, if you would like to substitute someone else for your place, that's totally fine.
When I did this a while back. Hello, Portland Public School Board. Thank you so much for all you do. My name is Allison Taylor, and I'm a parent of Ben, a third grader in Portland Public Schools' Vietnamese Dual Language Immersion Program, VDLI. I taught in PPS for over 17 years. Go Rough Riders! My comments are here to remind you of how important this program is to the district. Families think this program is so critical to their children's education that they are coming from around the city and even outside the school district to choose VDLI. During my son's first and second grade years, newcomers from Vietnam entered his class. Vietnamese students in the VDLI program have a teacher in every grade that speaks their home language and shares their culture and background. So extraordinary for a student from a historically underserved community. What a gift for these new students. A dual language program offers a range of benefits. By learning 2 languages, students develop bilingual and biliterate skills, which enhance cognitive flexibility, problem solving, and focus. There has also been compelling evidence demonstrating the effectiveness of dual language as a model that can not only close, but eliminate the opportunity gap for underrepresented populations. In addition, students gain a deeper appreciation for diverse cultures and perspectives, fostering empathy and global awareness. For the district, this program should be set up as a huge win for equity. The VDLI program is closer to the ideal 50-50 mix of students from native English and Vietnamese families compared to other DLI programs that serve mostly white families. Vietnamese is the 3rd most spoken language in this state. PPS's VDLI program could and should be an example for the nation of best practices for emerging bilingual students. My son loves being a part of this program. He loves performing at TET. He loves that he can listen to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in Vietnamese and follow along. And I know that it is making him a more global, thoughtful citizen. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Dwyer and Noah Johnson Green.
All right. Hi, I'm John Dwyer, parent of 2 kids, 3rd grader and kindergartner at Beverly Cleary, right down the road. I'm here because of the danger that my kids and other kids across the district face, the risk of an earthquake destroying unsafe buildings. We hear a lot about the high schools, but 9 elementary schools and middle schools that are unreinforced masonry buildings were rated poor in PPS's 2012 seismic report and have the highest risk of collapse. Beverly Cleary has the worst risk score and the 2nd highest enrollment. Even a moderate earthquake, which recent studies say is more likely than was previously thought, could cause mass casualties. A structural engineer said Beverly Cleary has alarming deficiencies, including beams and trusses resting on unreinforced masonry walls. In his words, it could be a complete collapse. I'm here to remind the school board and community that PPS has a moral obligation to protect students and staff. This risk has been known about for at least 13 years, and yet there is no timeline for keeping our kids and staff safe at the highest risk schools. It's unacceptable. As a parent, it terrifies me. I think about it every day when I drop my kids off. In the Beverly Cleary field, there's a large storage container. I recently learned that thanks to advocacy by the safety committee and PTA, it's filled with earthquake supplies, but it's not food and water in there. Instead, it's stretchers, shovels, and crowbars that'll be needed to dig kids out from the rubble of the school. I asked the PPS school board to publicly vote to allocate 2025 bond funding to seismically retrofit the elementary and middle schools that are expected to perform most poorly in an earthquake. Thank you.
Thank you.
virtually, we have Brianna Jarvis.
Hello. My name's Brianna Gervais, Gervais, she, her. I'm a previous PPS student, a PPS auntie, and a member of the PPS Deaf Native Advisory Board. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the needs of the Native American students and the efforts of the PPS Indian Ed families. It was just a few short months ago during winter break, PPS Indian Ed and the Native American community asked the board to consider additional funds in the bond to develop a center for the Native American Student Success Center. During those conversations, we asked for our students and families to have the opportunity to dream big about what the educational experience of PPS Native American students could look like. During those conversations, we asked for our students and families to have the opportunity to dream big. We were told it was not an ideal time to put those funds in the bond. Everyone shared the same message, that there was a need to continue the conversation and work together to serve Native American students. 6 months later, Indian Ed is now unhoused with no clear messaging from the board or the district. Where will we go? We have taken multiple steps backwards. I'm here to share the same message as the Indian Ed Parent Committee. We need funding. We need our students to be reflected in this budget. We need a home. We don't need a new building, we need follow through. PPS has empty buildings. The Meek campus is one of them. It's located in the Coley neighborhood where Superintendent Armstrong has publicly pledged investment. What better way to honor the commitment than by transforming Meek into a Native Student Center? We need a gym, a kitchen, an outdoor space for growing our plant relatives and our youth. A place where Native students are not guests, but the heart of the space, where culture, identity, wellness, and academic success are all nurtured together. We need to be able to provide our Native American students and families an opportunity to dream big about what their education could look like. And to do that, we need investment from the district. We need a home. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. Right, next.
Aaron Frazier and Irina Koshurba. Jackie Bennett, Jorge Sanchez Batista.
Ooh. Am I going first? Yeah, okay. Just double checking so I don't see anyone coming back. Thank you, Chair Wong, Vice Chair DePass, members of the board, Superintendent Armstrong, I forgot the doctor on there. For the record, my name is Jorge Sanchez Batista. I'm a senior at McDaniel High School, as well as a candidate for the Portland School Board Zone 5 position, but I am speaking today at my own capacity today as a trilingual student in PPS. So Spanish, English in mind, just for that out there in case folks are curious on what languages I know. I'm here to testify in support of the Language Access Department. Without interpreters, staff and families like my own will struggle with translation on important matters. Our district has an obligation to ensure families face no barriers when coming into our schools. At McDaniel, we have an amazing woman, which I will name, Gail Gamero in the back. Please stand up. Gail. Miss Gail, stand up, please. Miss Gail. Miss Gail, who I want to acknowledge, has been a translator and gone out of her way as a community agent to ensure newcomer students and families who don't speak English feel safe. I ask that the district continue to fund this department to ensure that all our families feel heard and that Miss Gail doesn't have to work twice as hard to ensure that students, whenever we go into field trips or any like matter, has to struggle with what exactly is being said. My last point that I want to make is that we continue to fund our immersion programs, like Representatives Nguyen and Tran have mentioned. As someone who has been in the Spanish immersion program for over 10 years, we know that they are important and benefit students really well. I ask that you continue Chinese, Japanese, Russian, Spanish, and so much more to benefit our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Watkins and Melissa Cooper. Per Olstad, Raisha Puchalski.
Hi, I'm Mary Watkins, and I'm a special educator in the Intensive Skills Center at Atkinson Elementary. ISC students are some of our most impacted students, requiring a high level of support to learn functional academics, social skills, communication skills, basic life routines, anything. Some of them need constant one-on-one assistance for physical or medical or safety needs. Participation in Gen Ed is part of the ISC program, and it's a legal requirement if it is on their IEP. An overwhelming majority of ISC students need paraeducator, one-on-one adult support when in Gen Ed. The proposed budget says that the staffing allocation for an ISC is 1 teacher, 3 paraeducators for 13 students, which sounds great. But with 4 staff to 13 students, if there are, say, 2 students participating in Gen Ed who each require adult support, say because they're in different grade levels, then there would be 2 staff in the ISC with 11 students, any number of which need individual support for academics, safety, 2 people for toileting, and there's only 2 adults in there, so it's not that many people. There's a process for getting additional paraeducators assigned to specific students based on their IEPs, on their needs, called designated paraeducators. Our ISC has some. They're great. They've been allocated to students with intensive medical and physical needs, making it possible for us to support these students in Gen Ed for significant portions of the day in compliance with their IEPs and as appropriate to their academic levels, and to meet their medical and physical and safety needs. However, and this is true in learning centers, CB rooms, everywhere, it can be very difficult to get that FTE allocated to a students. We're often told there's no guarantee the FTE will be allocated even if the IEP mandates that level of adult support. Sometimes we're told we need to use building resources as if there's just an extra adult laying around the building waiting for something to do all day, and there is not, ever, at least not in my building. This support needs to be available. It's on their IEPs that they get that level of adult support. We are not able to meet their IEP mandated time for inclusion in Gen Ed without it, and we can't meet their basic safety, medical, and health needs. You need to find the money, cut something else.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Per Olstead. I am a parent of 2 kids at Beverly Cleary School, just across the street, 1 in 2nd grade and 1 in 5th grade. I have a much longer statement that I will submit in writing later. It's not 2 minutes, so I will instead focus my comments to build on what my fellow parent John said and what the reporter Emma Pati said, building on her excellent article in the Willamette Week. The issues of seismic safety at elementary and middle schools are being ignored, and that has to stop. Nowhere in the budget and nowhere in the bond is there any specificity about how the board and PPS management are going to deal with the backlog of issues that have to get fixed before our children die in these buildings. One of my co-parents has said this in other meetings, but a parent's #1 job is to keep their kids safe. A community's #1 job is to keep their kids safe. We are failing at that job, but we do not have to. The resources are there if you prioritize them. Many of you have said, in general terms, you support prioritizing this funding going to seismic issues. We are way beyond general terms. We need specifics. We need commitments. We need you to tell us how you are going to prioritize dealing with the riskiest schools in the PPS portfolio. That includes Beverly Cleary, but it includes many other URM schools and other schools that are not URM that have horrible risk ratings. These issues are not your creation. I don't envy you the job of having to manage it, but it is your job. And we need you to do that job, and we need you to do it now. We desperately want to support the 2025 bond. And it's not just at Beverly Cleary. There are a number of schools across the district that are getting involved in this effort now. We want to support the bond. We believe in the projects at Cleveland, at Wells, and at Jefferson. They need to happen. But you're putting us in an impossible position where we're having to support projects we believe in and our children's safety. We can't support the bond if you don't make a commitment to address the issues at our schools. So we are calling on you as members of the board, please make a public commitment. Dr. Armstrong, please make a public commitment. Not just that you care about the issues, but how are you going to deal with it? Be specific, be clear about the priorities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Raisa. I'm the career coordinator at Roosevelt High School and a proud member of the Portland Federation of School Professionals. I've been at Roosevelt for over a decade. I love my school and my community so deeply. My partner, a K-5 physical education teacher at 2 elementary schools, Grout and Woodstock, has also been with the district for over 10 years. He's still currently waiting to hear back about his unassigned Point 2 position. But tonight I'm here with urgency because Portland Public Schools leadership is making decisions that are not just short-sighted, they're damaging. So far, 10% of our classified staff have been unassigned. That includes 38 educational assistants. 19 are bilingual EAs in Mandarin, Spanish, and Vietnamese. Those are not just numbers. These are potential cuts to trusted adults, cultural bridges, and daily student support, especially for our underserved communities. Career coordinators, positions like mine, which have existed for nearly 15 years, are being cut from the central budget entirely. We are student-facing positions that serve our entire school and not just a small caseload, the entire school population. And now school leaders are being forced to scramble, pulling funds from already depleted areas to keep us. Some schools like Alliance and MLC aren't doing that. They can't afford it. Jefferson tried to rehire someone and then pulled the offer due to budget uncertainty. So Jefferson students are left with nothing right now. No career coordinator. You heard from Chris Bridal last month about career-connected learning. What he didn't mention is that we, the career coordinators, are the backbone of that work. We are the ones organizing and transporting hundreds of students to the Northwest Youth Careers Expo every year. We are the people doing the work that is required by the state, tracking career-related graduation requirements, coaching students, building partnerships, hand-selecting opportunities based on student interest, supporting the creation of the education plan and profile, a mandated piece of the Oregon Diploma, OAR 581022. Documenting progress, career goals, and accomplishments. Who will do this work when we're gone? Will you push that burden onto already overworked teachers and counselors? We also play a vital role in career technical education, serving as the connection between teachers, employers, and students for work-based learning and real career exposure. Without us, those systems collapse. So I ask you again, who will do that work now? The proposed budget says the word equity 85 times, but where's the equity in cutting the positions that work most closely with our diverse student population? Where's the inclusion when many of the staff being cut are people of color, role models, and mentors that reflect the very students we claim to center? We are not expendable, we are essential. And in the moment when public schools and public services are under constant attack, I leave you with this. We must resist boldly, loudly, authentically, and I ask you, our board, our leaders, stand with us. Stand with the working class educators, the ones doing the real work, the ones who hold these communities together. Let's not just talk about fully funded schools, let's actually build them together.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Next two.
Tori Clark, Virginia Laforte.
Hi, everybody. My name is Virginia Lafort. I'm a Grant High School parent, and I'm here to speak about the importance of college and career coordinators for our high school students at Portland Public Schools, and to highlight the serious inequity in the current budget proposal. In the current proposal, funding for college coordinators comes from the classified staff budget, but funding for career coordinators is left up to individual high schools who must use their limited FTE allocations. This means principals are forced to choose between hiring career coordinators and maintaining classroom teaching positions. That's not a fair or sustainable choice. Career coordinators don't just help students choose a path, they help them find one. They connect classroom learning to real-world opportunities and open doors that many students might not know even exist. Whether they're considering college, trade schools, apprenticeships, or entering the workforce directly, students need guidance that goes beyond academics. For first-generation students, for those from underserved communities, and for anyone unsure of the future, a college and career coordinator can very well be the difference between drifting and direction when they graduate. It can be the difference between high school students showing up for school or not showing up for school. We need students to show up. The current budget forces high school administrators to fund these critical roles out of their limited FTE allocations, which means making impossible choices. Hire a career coordinator or keep a classroom teacher. That's not equity. That's a trade-off that shortchanges both students and staff. If we're serious about preparing students for life after graduation, we shouldn't be asking schools to sacrifice teaching positions to do it. We must fund career counselors equitably and sustainably from the classified staff budget because this is not a luxury, it's a necessity for the students who need it most.
Great. Thank you.
We have Zara Farqui and Suzanne Clark. Oh, sorry. She's not here. Okay. We have Bruce Morrison virtually.
Just turn it on. There we are. Sorry about that. Good evening. Hello. I'm Bruce Morrison with Portland Public Schools Indian Education Program. I'm pretty new to my position. Oh, and let's see, I use he, him pronouns. And I'm here to also talk about the Indian Education Program and some of the things I've noticed since starting. Let's see here. I guess let's see here. My colleague from the Indian Parent Committee had pointed out that, the Indian Parent Committee is feeling a little bit frustrated sometimes with some of the types of communication we've been getting from Portland Public Schools. It feels often, despite Indian education's federal requirements for meaningful communication with tribal communities and tribal leaders and with, the federally mandated established Indian Parent Committee, it feels like often instead the communications that we're receiving from the district, from the board, and from just, and from our colleagues in the district, tends to be keeping us at arm's length, holding us separate, and not really inviting Native educators, families, and other staff in to sort of be part of the decision-making process. Something that I'm hearing a lot from the Indian Parent Committee is that the Native community here feels like we want to have a seat at the table, and we want to be invited to be part of the decisions that are being made for Native students, and feel like the Native community has agency in how it is growing and how it is how the students are growing within PPS and how their futures are being determined. And so the Indian Parent Committee and other Native people in PPS that I've heard from have said that they would just like to see more opportunity being extended for them to be involved in the decision-making process, as opposed to how it often has been for Native folks throughout the history of North America, which is simply just being told what is going to happen to us. And I believe that's it. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
Sakura Hamada and Tori Padel Ford.
Hi there. My name is Sakura Hamada, she, her, and I am a school counselor at Marysville Elementary. I'm here to represent my community that I've been loving working for 2 years. I know it's short, but yes, at Marysville. So Marysville is a very special school with unique needs, and we're a Title I school with diverse community, and we serve a lot of students from a house of shelter, which is also taking victims of domestic violence, along with many other students from low-income households. And a lot of our students come from a lot of trauma from home and need robust mental health support. And unfortunately, due to the lack of funding, our mental health team is already understaffed, and next year we will be losing significant support. Over the past few months, the number of one-on-one check-in requests I receive from students has increased dramatically, with the majority of these coming from students of color, as many of them are fearful of the current political climate and worried about what might happen to their families and friends. We have students and families who have been evicted and lost their homes due to the unaffordability of their basic needs. And my fellow staff and members and admin are unable to meet all of our students' needs, and many of them are falling through not cracks, but a huge chasm created by the severe lack of funding for public education. As if that wasn't already challenging enough, we have been implementing the neighborhood school model for the last couple of years. On paper, this full inclusion model seems amazing, and in an ideal world, every child deserves to attend the school right in their own backyard. But unfortunately, reality, though, is that this model is not providing adequate support to students with the highest needs, again, due to the lack of funding for staff members. And next year, we will have even fewer staff members, with a total 8.5 FTE being cut from our class building. This means larger class size for teachers and caseload increase for our mental health team. In order for this model to truly succeed, our students will need to have more one-on-one time, and simply do not have enough paraeducators to support all of our students and needs our academic support. Our students deserve better, our SPED teachers deserve better, our classroom teachers better, and our community deserves better, and our Marysville community deserves better. Points blank. Done.
Thank you.
Ooh. We're in a pickle. Hi. Thank you, Dr. Armstrong, esteemed school board members. I hope that my message goes out to our mayor, to the citizens of Portland, and to our governor and all other Oregonians. I, dressed in yellow, and clearly all of these other voices here, we are the canaries in the coal mine. I've been involved with PPS as a citizen and as a parent, and I have been honored, deeply honored, and grown as a human to serve as a library assistant. This is my 21st year. Thank you. I'm honored, and I've served well, as have all of the other library assistants and librarians I know. And I say, you're in a pickle. You're in a pickle, school board, and we're in a pickle as citizens when we are cutting student-facing positions. Student-facing positions and adults, caring, educated adults that create relationships. One of my 4th grade students from Lewis Elementary last year came and spoke to you. She spoke of me and knowing every student's name, because I was there, because our library was open 5 days a week. I want the public to understand, because the public does not understand, that our school libraries are not open 5 days a week this year. And it sets up inequity, because there will be schools that will have parent volunteers that will come and run that library and shelve books. But then there will be schools that will not have a community that can make up that gap. Libraries are the hearts and souls and hubs of schools and communities. I am asking you to be our voice, be extraordinary, and be brave. Call a state of emergency with our governor. Everyone in Oregon follows PPS's directive. We are in trouble. We are not serving. I would love to speak with any of you more. I've been around a long time. I've made a lot of observations about this district. and I want to continue serving our community and our students. Please, please be brave and use your voice.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Zakiah Rhodes and Brian Healy. Araya Harbauer, Maya von Geldern.
Thank you. My name is Araya Harbauer. I am a special education teacher at Ockley Green. Currently, I am teaching 1.0 of a communication behavior classroom. Next year, that becomes 0.5 CB, 0.5 Learning Center. Nobody can tell me what that means, but it's actually not even why I'm here. It's kind of its own mess. I'm here to speak out against the dance cuts planned for our school. In case you do not know, Ockley Green is a Title I school, a school that serves one of the most diverse communities in Portland, and one that is not experiencing a decline in enrollment next year. We serve a historically underserved community, and somehow, when the topic of cuts come up, we somehow always find ourselves on the block. Well, that happened once again this spring when we were told that we would be losing our dance program. For those who don't know, for the last several decades, Ockley has helped produce nationally competitive dancers that go into the pipeline at Jefferson High School. This has been a vital service to one of Portland's most diverse communities. Ask anybody at Ockley Green and in North Portland, and they will tell you that the dance program is our heart and one of the most important things we do for our community. As a special education teacher, I've seen firsthand how important this is. I've seen some of my most shy and anxious students open up and grow into themselves through their experiences with the Ockley Dance Program in a way that I honestly don't know if I could ever accomplish through just teaching. Our communities deserve more. As a special education teacher, I also know that the district is under a disproportionality investigation. We have been found at fault for underserving our communities. I was just in a meeting last week and I was asked, what do I think the root cause of the disproportionality is? Well, let's look at the fact that we are cutting a dance program in North Portland, our most diverse community. I wonder how a disproportionality exists in this district. I urge the school district to change their course on this matter. Our communities deserve more. Our school deserves more. We have lost so many of our services. We teach in a 100-year-old building that doesn't have AC or heat. And now you are telling our kids they can't even dance.
Thank you.
That's going to be a hard one to follow without getting emotional. Hi, my name is Maya Pueo von Geldern. One thing I wanted to point out is that every comment tonight spoke to the importance of the roles, programs, and positions that are extremely important to our communities, whether it be buildings that are safe for our kids, cherished positions, or the rights of our children with 504 plans. With the decision to save one item on the list of cuts, we sacrifice something else on the list. We are in this position because Oregon has never funded to QEM or the quality education model. We are $22.9 billion underfunded, and $11.6 billion, or whatever the current service level is set to be, will not help us dig ourselves out of that $22 billion hole. And I use the term current service level with a grain of salt, because there's nothing about CSL that is going to provide the current services that we see today in the next year or two. It should be current funding level, and that is not good enough for our kids. So I ask of you and everyone here in the room to come with us to Salem tomorrow. We have a planned lobby day for public schools, and we need to work together to make sure our legislators hear our voices when we say that our kids, every single one of our kids, and public education matters. Our dancers, our athletes, our academic overachievers, our academic, hard workers who are trying to make it through the day, every single child. If anyone is interested in advocating for QAM tomorrow in Salem with us or in the days to come, please come find me after this meeting. And for all of you, I hope we get to see you tomorrow, and I thank you for advocating for our kids.
Thank you.
Hung Friel, David Machado.
Howdy. My name is Hung Friel. I just graduated from Franklin, and I just want to say that I don't know anything about the financials. I don't keep up to date with all the different news on what's going on, but I am here to share my testimony on the Vietnamese interpreters of PPS. So just to give you some context, I skipped quite a bit. I skipped quite a bit, and I always told my mom, I'm Asian, I always told my mom that it was okay because I got my assignments done, but she was always kind of worried, not really sure what was going on. Eventually, it got to the point where I almost got dropped out of school, and then we had to have a meeting with the school, and my mom had to come as well, and I was like, oh shucks, my mom now is gonna find out what's going on and all that sort of stuff, right? And it was really important to me that I had an interpreter that could really understand my mom and where I was coming from. I had never had that before, and it was always difficult when I was speaking with my counselors and I'd bring my mom, but there was that language barrier, that Vietnamese language barrier that I could never it was hard because my mom and I, we were both emotional, and we both had our own beliefs on what we thought was right. But it wasn't until Go Ha, or one of the Vietnamese interpreters of PPS, that she came through, and she really went above and beyond to understand me and my mom, where we were coming from, and we had a really just distorted relationship. It was built on glass, you could say. There wasn't that trust. But if it wasn't for her, I don't know, I have a feeling it'd still be that way. I don't know if there would be the trust that my mom and I have, that we have today. And so I really appreciate her and all of her work, and I hope that other students that are graduating soon, because I was a senior, I hope that other students get the chance to work with people like her, to advocate for them, and to just help them and their lives, because this really impacts not just our school lives, but our relationships with our parents and the time to come. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Contreras Machado. I'm the Associate Director for Educational Access for Latino Network. Thank you for having me here today. I'm here to advocate for the continued funding for community-based organizations that are part of a lot of the PPS schools and other districts as well. The resources, the support that we provide for our students are very crucial and vital for their success. And I believe that the funding that is provided to these organizations is money well spent. We use that money not only directly to support our students, but we also are very frugal and know how to stretch out a budget. We use we use our resources and leverage them to provide even more of an opportunity for our students to experience things and experiences like going to OSU for an entire week over the summer programming after school, out of school time support, case management, one-on-one check-ins, the very necessities and support that they need to graduate high school on time, and then even supporting them through their post-secondary career, even over the summer, trying to reduce summer melt, getting students into and enrolled into their classes to start in the fall. We've done trips to go to California, have presented the WUI scholarship to allow them to know that they are getting scholarships and able to pay in-state tuition even in Northern California schools. We have some of our students who actually are attending USC, Stanford, all thanks to the trips that we are able to do and the resources that we're able to bring in. Our community, specifically the Latino community, is facing a very difficult time, as it's completely obvious. Our very presence in these spaces are under attack. Our rights are being questioned. A lot of our families are very fearful of being in these spaces, to engage in these public spaces. And it's just very disheartening to see that the progress that we were doing is now being clawed back. So please continue to fund programs like the Latino Network and others as supported by our ESJ programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chao Lee, Zoya Saritz.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zoya Suritz, and I have been working in the Russian immersion program for 13 years by now. I know Olga Filinova with language access as a language access specialist from day one of my work at PPS, and I can't even imagine our program without her. Throughout all these years, Olga has been an integral part of sustaining our immersion program, helping us, teachers, and Russian-speaking parents to connect, find resources, resolve problems, organize networking events, and many other important tasks and activities. Teachers in the Russian immersion program don't have TOSAs or any other liaison professionals. We are very isolated in our classrooms. Same goes for parents, especially newcomers or non-Russian speaking parents who want their child to learn Russian but don't have an idea about this program. People like Olga connect us and bring a substantial amount of families into our valuable language program just because they've been working in the district and have a great experience and knowledge in the educational system and support. As an example of Olga's support, she was one of the organizers of Russian-speaking youth forum for many years. Latin language access specialists to continue doing their indispensable work in supporting families, teachers, and students is absolutely critical in raising the future citizens of the world.
Great, thank you.
Hello, my name is Chao Lima. 我係兩個細路嘅媽媽，跟住咧。
Sorry to interrupt. You're using an interpreter, correct?
Yes.
Okay, since you're using an interpreter and you kind of have to say it twice, we're going to allow 4 minutes for your testimony.
Okay, thank you. So 佢哋而家咧喺 Woodstock 嘅中文沉浸式課程嗰度讀書。今日咧我係為咗保留翻譯組嚟提幾個問題嘅。
I am a mother of 2 children. They are study at the Woodstock school. Today, I am asking some question to keep the interpreter team.
OK， 第一個咧就係、請問如果解聘翻譯組嘅話，當家長需要幫助嗰陣咧，係需要向邊個或者邊度去尋求幫助？
First question, if firing interpreter team, when parents need help, where or who should we find help?
第二個咧就係、響 IEP 會議嘅專業名詞入邊，係咪外聘嘅翻譯員咧可以精確咁樣、完整、公平咁樣翻譯，或者外聘嘅翻譯員係咪價錢平啲？
Second question. If hiring an interpreter outside school, when the IEP meeting that have special terms need to be translated accurately, but sometimes this interpreter cannot accurately translate those special terms from the IEP meeting. Are they cheaper to be hired?
如果翻譯不當嘅話，引起嘅誤會由邊個嚟負責？
Third question, if interpretation was not accurate and it causes misunderstanding or miscommunicating, who will be responsible for it?
曾經出現過咧，我嘅細路仔參加 IEP 會議嗰陣， 有啲翻譯員呢，就當場係揾唔到合適嘅翻譯詞語，所以呢，我喺度強力要求保留我哋嘅翻譯組。
Once, when I attended an IEP meeting with my child, the interpreter cannot find the accurate or correct word to translate what I want to say. And so I strongly request to keep the interpreter team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last thing. There's an Chinese and English version of the petition to present to you guys.
I'll make sure the board gets copies.
Great, thank you.
Natalia Gunther and Mariah Bennett Gillard.
My name is Natalia Gunther, and I'm a 30-year PPS veteran ESL teacher. I'm here to speak for Olga Filinova and others in similar positions as language access specialists, as their positions are currently being cut. Our district vision states that a PPS graduate will be a compassionate, critical thinker, able to collaborate and solve problems, and be prepared to lead a more socially just world. This defines the goal we set for ourselves as educators and a promise we give to the PPS community, our families, and students. I, as a teacher, can't accomplish this goal alone. It takes a team of dedicated, hardworking, and innovative individuals who work together to get this monumental job done. This team should include and should continue to include Olga Filinova in her capacity. I have worked with Olga since she started at PPS almost 20 years ago. Olga and people in her role work with the most vulnerable families and students in our district, the ones who don't speak English, may not understand how our school system works, the ones who come to us after experiencing hardships and discrimination in other countries. She helps them every day to become an equal part of the PPS community by serving as a liaison and a bridge. She is my voice, recently one of the parents said about Olga, and I think we just heard that also. It echoes the last testimony we just heard. She does it with a great sense of empathy, multicultural knowledge, and cross-cultural skills. Olga's work has a long-lasting impact on the families and our students, and we just can't break this link. We can't leave our families without a voice. The journey of one child is guided by many lights. Without Olga, there will be one less light along this path. Are you okay with that? I'm not.
Thank you.
My name is Mariah Bennett Gillard, and I am a senior clerk 1 with the Records Management Department housed in the basement of the Profit Center. I have a master's degree in archives and records management, and I've been in records roles for the vast duration of my career. Records management manages all student records and archives for the entire district, dating back to the date of inception for PPS. And yes, we do have records that old. Registration records are under permanent federal retention. That means forever we have those records. Transcripts for high school are retained for 75 years after the date of graduation. PPS cannot be without an adequately staffed records department because under FERPA law, any records under retention must be produced upon request within 10 days, or PPS will be in non-compliance with the state and federal laws. Non-compliance will lead to the following: loss of federal funding, costing PPS money. Legal action. Individuals who have had their FERPA rights violated may file lawsuits against the district, which will cause PPS money. The Department of Education, or what's left of it, can impose fines costing PPS money. Our accreditation loss will be pending, which will affect our ability to operate and receive funding in the future. We will receive reputational damage that will take years to repair. We will have employee turnover at the school level because the records management department will not be able to assist them with their workload as their positions are being cut to part-time. There will be extensive corrective measures that PPS will have to undertake in order to correct the non-compliant standing that you end up with the state and federal FERPA law violations. And all of this can be avoided by not cutting the records team by 25%, which was a decision made by Otis. And after the egregious error made by Otis management at the end of last school year to close the print shop, costing us double what it costs to run the print shop, records management needs to be removed from Otis management and assigned to either the legal department, who understands compliance law and sees the value financially and the community value in what we do, or under business management, who will also understand the money involved with the importance of our job and staying within FERPA compliance.
Thank you.
Nancy Perez and Joe Rose.
Hello, I'm Joe, he, him, parent at Roosevelt. We must pass the bond, and I do not feel the board is in the streets and press enough. I have been a long-time volunteer in schools. My volunteering started in 1993 in Houston in the 5th Ward and Thurgood Marshall and Bayview Hunters Point, and I volunteered in many schools in San Francisco and Portland. Volunteering changed my community, and it changed me. I was once a tech bro. I supported the Roosevelt teachers in the strike and learned how PPS is wasting 3% of our budget on admin not found in other audits of other districts. Furthermore, PPS was told to produce homework and how to cut that overspending, and no such homework was done. And meanwhile, during the strike, you guys were all on the board, not all of you, but many on the board were bad-mouthing my daughter's teachers at Roosevelt. I cannot believe what you say because I see what you do. The excessive admin are a budget drain on the child services that you've heard here, and they also slow down my daughter's educators with their top-down mandates. No one wants a micromanager looking over their shoulder. Less micromanagement. Valuing my daughter's teachers means bottom-up leadership and cutting the top. I was volunteering last Saturday to elect a PPS student and 3 moms. I also handed out these things to pass the bond. Please pass the bond and get out in the streets like me as the board, and I respect you and Dr. Armstrong. But we are facing a crisis. If you could hear what the public said, I knocked on 100 doors, and it is not good news. So talk to me, and please spend the next few weeks passing this bond. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Virtually, we have Ginger Hussar.
Is that my turn to go?
Yes.
Okay. All right. My name is Ginger Hussar. I am a special education learning center teacher at Atkinson Elementary. I teach students kindergarten through 5th grade. We are a Spanish immersion school. I have been a learning center teacher in PBS for 7 years. Each year has gotten progressively more challenging. I've taught through COVID. I used to teach middle school. When we came back, it was a public health crisis, in my opinion, returning to a high needs population of students with unmet supports. I moved to elementary school 3 years ago, and I can say that there have been changes at the district level that have not encapsulated how we serve our vulnerable populations who also have coexisting needs. So in a Spanish immersion school, we have students coming in from other countries, we have newcomers, we have students who don't speak English, we have students who come with IEPs from other countries, and when I ask for support from the district, they don't have an answer. So the lack of support that special education staff, and I say staff because it's not just special education teachers, it's paraeducators, it's speech pathologists, it is everyone, it's school psychs, it's everybody on our team who is doing this work, and we are taxed because we are working really hard and we are not meeting the level of support that our kids need. And for those of us who work in schools like Spanish immersion schools, we have a higher level of need. I work in a school that also has 2 focus ISC classrooms for, like those are considered life skills classrooms. Right now, none of the 3 special ed teachers are getting their contract case management and planning time as we should. We file grievances because we went on strike for these very things that we are told that we're going to have more of, and we don't have it because nobody can give it to us because we are not staffed appropriately, because our caseloads can be outrageous numbers and nobody cares. I have sat down with people from the district and found that I have 2,000 minutes a week that I cannot serve my caseload of students. That's unmet legal obligations. I've asked for the district to write compensatory service letters to the families to let them know that their children are not getting their legal services because I can't serve them, because there is not enough minutes in the day for me to do the job that I am expected to do, because my caseload is so high. I don't get my planning time, and when I file a grievance and it goes up to the district level, the district staff do not show up because I don't mean anything to them, and serving my students and my job and to do my job doesn't appear to have any relevance either. And I speak on this freely because this is what's happening with so many special education staff in this district. I am not unique to the situation. When it comes down to it,
Thank you. I'm
my
sorry,
biggest
but can
concern
you please
is
finish up?
that
Please feel free to email if whatever you didn't get to say, please email it in. We would love to read the rest of your testimony. Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Simone Crow.
Hi, my name is Simone Crow. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm invested in the success of our schools to the point where I'm running for school board. It's such an honor to be here providing comment amongst so many heartfelt and courageous community members tonight. Thank you for taking their words to heart and incorporating their input into your budget, because it's these folks and their kids who are the ones who will be most impacted. I mostly want to underscore what the community tonight has already voiced. I hope the budget will prioritize upgrading schools to be safe for our kids if an earthquake hits, with comfortable temperatures all the time. I hope that it prioritizes language access, values teachers, and prioritizes small class sizes, because this will help kids in our greater community thrive. I will also be in Salem tomorrow advocating for more funding in education and invite all of you to join me because we must find more funds. I appreciate the public comment hearing held today, but my question is how much community involvement has already happened in this budgeting process beyond today? It's something I care deeply about and would love to hear more about. Thank you for the opportunity to provide feedback on the budget and for the work you do.
Great, thank you.
Chair Wong, that is everybody that I have signed up. I do show somebody in the virtual attendees who's not on the list. Would you like me to bring them in and ask them? I don't see your name. What's your name? Let me see what he says about that now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes. We have until 8 at least.
Hi. My name is Nicole Safronic, and I am a teacher at McDaniel High School. I'm specifically a newcomer teacher, so I work with students who are moved here in the last 1 or 2 years. And in that capacity, I've been able to work with the language access services team a lot. You heard from one of my students earlier today who was speaking about how much Olga Filinova has worked and helped his family. A lot of people have commented about language access services today, and it was news to me at the end of last week that all the people in that department had been unassigned. And this is a team of just 5 people who create content in PPS's 5 supported languages for the entire district. But document translation is basically the least of what they bring to our community. These 5 people are long-term community members who bring years of connection with families and students to their work. I think what I'm noticing in the room today is that the interpreters who came here generously offering their services are not getting to do any work because the families are sitting with the language access services people who they know and trust. They have a rare mix of language expertise, knowledge of school systems, and community connections that positions them to help bridge the cultural gaps between immigrant families and the U.S. school system. I personally contact language access services whenever native language can enrich my classroom activities. They have supported me when students are completing surveys like the Successful Schools survey, which the translation is terrible and students have lots of questions about what the questions mean. They have supported students in lessons about their rights as immigrants. They even chaperone field trips if you ask them to. They not only make the content comprehensible for my students, they engage students in questioning the content and expressing their own opinions and concerns. Essentially, they give voice to students who often feel that true communication is impossible for them, and also to their families. So I really encourage and hope that that team will be reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Roberts and Reggie Knock.
All right, I am David Roberts. I represent 2 kids who go to Beverly Cleary. And first of all, I want to thank you for creating an inclusive and beautiful environment for my kids to learn in. It's because of you that when my kid went to Superhero Day, he dressed up as a Navajo code talker on the same day that our president said that he wanted to wipe it off of all of our U.S. history things. So thank you for creating that environment. But this is all mute in the face of him sitting in a school where he could die from an earthquake. It's heart-wrenching to think that the left field of the baseball field at Beverly Cleary is full of equipment to dig kids out of that situation, and not as a way to say like, hey, like, let's figure this all out, but as a safety measure, knowing that the emergency response teams won't be able to get to our kids in enough time to save them. I was in the streets with the Portland Teachers Association during the strike, and I think it's important for them to have a safe environment to go to work in. It's impossible to believe that we're even sending kids to this environment. It's impossible to believe that our teachers are being sent into this environment. And right now we're asking for part of this budget to go to that seismic effort in order to make sure that our kids are safe. There are 19 schools affected by this, and my kids go to one of those. So again, I thank you for creating an environment where they can learn about all of the diversity and inclusion that we've been talking about and all of the cultures that have been represented in all of our public schools. But this doesn't make any sense if the school isn't safe for them to learn in. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Reggie. My pronouns are they, them. I am a school secretary at a Title I elementary school. And aside from the numbers side of things, my job is about trust with the family members in my community, with students and with my colleagues. And I'm just here to tell you that it's really hard to build trust when the answer so many times is going to be no. When I have families that I can't communicate with because the only language I speak is English, and they have to like cycle through various phone interpreters rather than having a consistent person that they can like build a relationship with over time, that makes it hard for me to build trust. To think about Olga, who is like many people have talked about, who is the person who is like walking some of like the refugee families at my school through their experience here. To think that that is going to disappear for them, that is going to damage their trust with this district forever. Like, we build trust through consistency. That secretaries are constantly cut and like told that our positions aren't important, that means the person that families talk to every day is going to change all the time, because we will like grow out of our ability to have a job that pays you very little and only half of the time. I think this is true for EAs, for many other, for paras, for like the classified contingency that is being cut at a huge rate, for teachers, for everyone. Like, we need to be able to be consistent to show that like someone will be there for you. We are humans, we are walking you through this life. And it's just hard when we say no. When someone comes and they say, I'm new to your school, I know my kid needs a para. And when I know in my heart that the answer is going to be, like, I don't know when you'll get a para, I don't know if you will get a para. It's just hard to build that trust. A good friend of mine has on her like computer a sticky note that says, you can't professionally develop trust. And I think about that all the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yasmin Lorea.
Alrighty, hello. Thank you for letting me speak. I just wanted to say, as much as I do care about the earthquake and emergency response, I just need to say we need to allocate funds towards maintenance for our older buildings, especially in the Title I schools. I'm a para at a Title I school, and in October I slipped in a puddle from a leaking water fountain. No joke. I was out for 6 months and needed knee surgery, and it was almost career ending. Sorry. It was, yeah, the entire thing was and I'm still healing, it's still a lot for me, but it was unfair on my students and especially my coworkers, and I wouldn't want this happening to anyone else in our district. Like, I'm being so serious, sorry. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say, but yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Charlotte. I'm a para at Pioneer, and I pretty much second what people are saying about the budget. I do have a friend who's a records clerk that couldn't be here today, and I wanted to read you his words. Again, seconding everything about the budget. We need to chop from the top. And I'm just reading the last part of what he wrote. It's unrelated to the budget directly. I would like to urge the board to continue to advocate for our most at-risk communities and to constantly reaffirm our community values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Unfortunately, the current federal regime is attacking any and all institutions and communities who hold these pro-social values as a part of their ploy to implement Project 2025 and secure their fascist agenda. We need to call it what it is. We must resist any and every way that we can, and we need our leaders to boldly and loudly proclaim this resistance. We are not living in a stable or normal times, and we cannot allow our most at-risk community members to be further at risk. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's everybody signed up? That's everybody I have signed up?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not. One more. Aaron Frazier. Sorry, Aaron.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. I recognize I'm last, so I will do my best to be brief. My name is Erin Frazier, and I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Black Excellence. And I implore you all to do 3 things. The first is to maintain funding for ResJ partners. ResJ has often been one of the first places the district looked to make its cuts in the past. And as a result, ResJ partners are already doing more with less. Second, I want to ask you all to do something that feels like it should be easy in this incredibly tight budgetary environment, where we do have to make a lot of hard decisions about how to demonstrate and advance our priorities, which is spend the bond dollars that you already have allocated and cannot use for any other purpose to identify a site to purchase for the Center for Black Student Excellence this spring and complete the transaction on that property as soon as is possible, and certainly before the end of this calendar year. There are an abundance of community partners, some of whom you contract with, but most of whom you have never given a dime, who are ready and waiting to help fill these gaps that your cuts will inevitably leave by putting on programming at the CBSE related to core academics, positive identity development, family engagement, professional development, wellness, research, and more. Finally, and directly related to the previous request, dedicate at least 1 full-time staff member to the CBSE with the authority to oversee the completion of that transaction for the center and to coordinate its use upon its opening. That may sound like a big ask in this context where we know we're fighting for every dollar in every position, but I hope it feels like a smaller one when given the context that in the fall of this school year, there were 2 PPS employees dedicated specifically to the CBSE and 2 others who were dedicated to the Innovation Studio, which are often supporters of that work. And now in 2 months' time, without this district's leadership's action, there will be none. So, with that, I thank you for your time. I know you've got a lot of hard decisions to make, but I ask that you make the easy one, which is to spend money that can go to no other purpose except the Center for Black Student Excellence. Identify and purchase a site as soon as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it. Was there a wait list, or is that?
That's everybody that I have signed up.
Okay, that's everybody. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here and providing, especially those providing public comment. Your words help inform our work, so thank you. All right now, board members, now that we have heard public testimony on the proposed budget, we have an opportunity to more deeply review the budget materials. I'd like to use this time to see if anyone has any clarifying questions of the superintendent or to engage in discussion with each other.
I have a clarifying question. We heard a lot today about language access, and I think it's something all of us on the board are probably interested in learning more about that. And I know that there was a change from the Oregon Department of Education, I think related to possibly that program. Is this the same thing or something different that we were hearing about tonight?
It's something different. I'm happy to share more if needed, when needed. Okay.
Yes? Yeah, go for it. Sorry, it's hard to hear from over here.
Okay, I'm going to call forward my chief of communications to share just a brief overview of just some data that's been collected.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. First, let me start by saying that we truly do value the presence of the language access team. I knew that when the district had to make these tough decisions, and as I was going through my budget and my staffing, one of the things that came upon me was that, one, we are duplicating some efforts. We do have a community agent team who is also in the schools and connected with the families. It's a multilingual team, a bilingual team that supports our schools. The second thing that I noticed was that 80% of our interpretation requests were being used by our vendors. while about a good 14% were used by our full-time staff. Also, the vendor services were costing the district 40% less than what the full-time staff was costing. And so after going through and learning those things, I knew that we would still be meeting the Title VI criteria if we were to continue on with the vendor services which were in place, and still maintain the community agent services, so that no family would be interrupted with the elimination of the 5 language access services. So I'm hoping that clears that up. I am able to provide more documentation in detail if you would like.
Great.
Just follow up. How many language access positions are there, and are those part of the 75 central office cuts?
There are 5 language access service roles, and as far as...
Yes, that is part of the 85.5 reductions from central office.
How many schools do those 5 serve?
So they serve around the district. I can go into detail. I'm happy to send you all detail on the schools, but when I looked at the numbers, some of the service at the schools throughout the district may be 1 school for the entire year. So the data that I have is from the first day of school starting up until today as we sit here. And so there are some times where full-time staff may have gone to maybe 1 school this entire time, where the vendor services may have served 80% more of the schools.
Yeah, just to say that the team responded to my request to really examine the way in which we were functioning and with our central services and out of those funds, and to see where we saw services that were duplicated in buildings in a way for us to be able to make some reductions at the central office level and keep FTE at the school site as much as possible. Right, none of these conversations were easy. They're even sitting today and listening, like I feel for every single person. If we can keep every single person, we absolutely would. And we still needed to address a $40 million deficit. And so one of the things is we had to look at functions and where we were needing to make some reductions based on the use of those services.
So you talked about using vendors instead. I guess I'll direct it at both of you. I don't want to put anyone on the spot. You're talking about you're already using vendors. You're planning on using them instead. What do you plan to do to make sure that schools and communities know how to connect with the vendors versus how it's probably easier to connect with somebody that they already knew?
Yes, no, that's a good question. And so currently these schools are still using these vendors. And so it'll be the same process that they've been using currently because we use them 80% of the time. However, we do plan to, with this change, we do plan to put more information out as we know that there are some schools who are used to having a specific way of how they do things. And so there will be information placed on just that reminder of the steps and processes to take with using those vendors.
Yeah, I think my question, what is the total cost of the vendors we use?
So year to date, do you want a comparison compared to the full-time staff?
That would be great.
Yes. So year to date, the total cost of the vendor services is about $161,000, and the 5 full-time staff is about $400,000.
So I have a general question. So I submitted a number of questions, but one of the ones that I'm trying to sort through is exactly where the positions are cut, because when I was thinking of language access, like I wouldn't necessarily think that was a central office cut. So one of the questions I submitted is like how many FTE are actually being reduced. On the heat map, it had 157 teachers. But on page 194 and 195, it seems like that's the definitive, here's the FTE for the whole district, which has 183. So I'm trying to do the math where in the, and maybe this is a question, sorry, Michelle, or somebody else, or maybe it's HR, of where in the budget document does it show in what categories all the FTE that have been reduced? Because the math, I can't make the math work between 75 or 80-something central office, 157 teachers, and I know there's a whole host of other people, but that's more than 183.
Yeah, so thank you. We have had that question come up, and I think one of the challenges is when you're looking at the budget document, you're looking at our current year, the 24-25 adopted budget and adopted FTE, and then the proposed FTE for 25-26. And when we're talking about reductions and we're presenting information to you, that's actually from our current staffing levels, so that's our 24-25 actuals. The math won't be a straight line in the budget document, so what we're trying to share with you is our current state and the reductions we're making from the current state.
So is the current state in the budget?
No, it's more in the presentation materials we've been sharing.
Okay. So I guess what's not clear is what is if you have a current state and you're going to cut X amount, how many are you cutting? So there's 157 in teachers in the heat map. There's 81 apparently in the central office. Where would we find the rest of them? And then also what specifically the 81 in the central office?
So I think I'd like HR to confirm that information. I do focus more on the dollars than the FTE amounts, but my last review showed about 285 positions. Some were school-based, some were central office-based, and then we have to elaborate whether or not that includes all funds, or if we're focused on the general fund, which has been our primary focus as we move through the process, because that's our operating budget. And so when we take into the account the parent funds, the foundation funds, and the title funds, that total staffing number that you're seeing in the heat map is a reflection of reduction of all of that. So it's a very long-winded answer to say, I do have your question and I'm working through it and I'd like HR to verify.
Great, I really appreciate that. I mean, one thing, having just been through both upcycles budgets and downcycle budgets, the worst thing is after the vote's already happened to be like, well, you cut that out, and not having any idea that that was something to cut out. So just having clarity, because I also think it's important to know what everybody who is one of those FTE provides some sort of service to our schools. And so knowing what it is that will be missing next year, I think will be really important, not finding out afterwards. So I appreciate that we're going to get an answer. So, and just to summarize, the charts in the book are not using the actual
Correct.
Numbers. Okay. That makes it challenging, obviously.
Yes, yes.
I have a comment. Thank you for being here. About the reserve fund policy, I believe our board policy calls for a 5 to 10% target. And I know over my time on the board, it's gone up and down. I don't know what that is, and I wouldn't expect you to know either, but I'm looking for a percentage of what that is, and if we would revisit spending that down a little bit. And then my other, I just have a comment. We heard from someone in the audience about a state of emergency, and I'm just wondering how much worse it's going to get if we don't, with some urgency, look at our system that we're working within and really work together as a community to address these seemingly intractable issues that don't seem to be getting better. I love the idea of a state of emergency. This is an emergency. This is not, it's dire, and it'd be one thing if there was light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't see it. So just a comment.
Yeah, and I think my other question was, what did the student engagement look like when making the proposed cuts for our language access services program?
I am happy to bring students into this conversation. I actually appreciate tonight even hearing from some of these students and finding and identifying ways that our community agents who currently sit in this space and their role is to connect with families and students to try to bridge that gap.
I think my question was more, did the district have any attempts to ensure that there was student engagement when making these proposed cuts?
Gotcha.
And if so, what were they?
Gotcha, no.
I have a follow-up just based on one of the student comments we heard. I guess I'm still trying to understand like what the vendors do versus what the staff does. And for example, the field trips question. So maybe just sharing a little bit about like the job description between the two roles, and then if the vendors do the field trips, because I think we heard quite a bit about the field trips today.
Correct. So pretty much the same. So we have on-call as well. So on-call will be able to fill in whatever our full-time staff is not able to do. The vendors also are able to interpret and translate. And so, for example, some that are here tonight are those vendors because our full-time does not work after these hours. So it's pretty much the same exact services, which is why I believe that there is more 80% use of that vendor services because they provide pretty much the same services. And I'm happy to like pull down full job descriptions. I don't have that with me, but I'm happy to get full job descriptions.
Sure, it was more like quotes around job description. So the field trips, the vendors can handle the field trips?
I can research if they do,
Okay.
but from what I learned that they were on call and they can come in and do those types of things. But I can look into that further.
I appreciate that. Thank
Sure.
you so much.
Can I address, Vice Chair DePass, your question about fund balance? I actually do have that information up here. And so as we went into the 24-25, our current school year, we were intentionally spending down a big chunk of the fund balance, about $40 million plus $30 million in reductions. So that was a much bigger chunk. And so we were already at that 5% minimum this current year. And so we're maintaining that 5% minimum as we move into next year. So I just wanted to touch on that. And state of emergency, I have to say, my colleagues across the state are seeing this same thing at varied levels. So it's not just a Portland Public Schools problem. It's a bigger deal. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Director Hollins?
Curious.
I'm sorry.
What
Director
do you
Sullivan.
do with a state of emergency? Can you actually do that? Can we call that to the governor?
Well, hell, we've been calling it.
Well, yeah, but they're
The
not.
governor can.
Hey, listen.
We can't.
not
Are you
pushing
asking
it.
me? Who are you asking?
Or is this just something to say? Is there really something you can do?
Is there some actions behind calling a state of emergency for education?
I don't think our governor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this energy. I do. Yeah, here. I just want to say honestly, like I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I just don't think that our state elected officials agree that we have a school funding emergency, and that's part of the problem.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Say that again.
I don't think our state elected officials agree that we are in a state of emergency for our public schools. I disagree with that, and we've heard a lot about the lobby day tomorrow. I'll be there. I've been helping to pull that together. You can find out more at fundourschools.com. If you want to come, please just show up. For Oregon School, Fund Oregon Schools. Yeah, sorry guys. Easy to remember, but then I forgot. But you should definitely consider coming, writing your legislators. It's so important. But honestly, like, we have to do the work of convincing our state elected officials that it's unacceptable to continue to underfund our schools. And please, like, we all are in agreement here that this needs to happen. So thank you so much for your advocacy. And I promise, as a school board member and a human being and parent, I will continue to fight that fight until we have the funded schools that we need for our kids in our future. And then I think there's like an actual answer on the state of emergency question from, like, you know, somebody who knows things like this.
Yeah, well, someone who will try to know something. Deborah Kafori, Chief of Staff. We could, as a district, send a letter to the governor saying that we are in a state of emergency. I think that Director Split was correct, that there would not be agreement, and there's not a definition actually for a state of emergency on school funding. There's a definition of state of emergency for drought and for wildfire and for pandemics, et cetera, but not for school funding. So, you know, it wouldn't hurt to give it a try. I do want to comment real quickly, though, on I think we might be conflating two things, which is using the reserve, the ending fund balance, which the board has directed the district to keep between 5% and 10%. Viewing that as a rainy day fund, I just want to urge you very strongly against, because those are the dollars that, A, you heard from our superintendent and from our CFO, we're going to be back here again next year. If the state legislature doesn't decide that we are in a funding emergency and bestow more dollars on us, we're going to be back here next year looking at least a $30 million shortfall. So I wouldn't raid every piggy bank right now, myself, is our advice to you. And second, it does affect our bond rating, and especially as we are selling bonds and going out for a new bond, when we try to sell those bonds, if we don't have that reserve of at least, and I'm saying 5% is the minimum. I know at Multnomah County, before I left, we were trying to raise it upwards of 15%. 5% is the bare minimum. If we don't have that, the reviewing agencies will downgrade our bonds, and we as taxpayers will have to pay a lot more money in interest when we sell those. So those are my 2 cents. I wish I had more for the night. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I will
Yeah,
start drafting a letter to the governor.
Speaking of the bond, I have sort of two questions, and I don't know who this question before, but I was kind of surprised when I was looking through just the line items that last year there was 127 million spent on architectural engineering and design and management services for the bond. And I know that the board had approved, or in the bond there was 20 million for Cleveland and 20 million for Ida B. Wells, but I'm curious if that's 127, and then the second piece is there's for FY 25 and 26, there's 115 million allocated for architecture, engineering, design, and management services, which seems like that's a middle school. But I see the person who can answer the question is here.
Good evening, Dan Young, Chief Operating Officer. I will be brief in my answer, and I don't have the details of what went into that. We can pull data about what contracts, exactly what invoices went against those expenditures. I don't know what those are at my fingertips. In general, the district spends, hundreds of millions of dollars of capital improvements every year. And so design services and management fees are a part of that, but I'd have to actually pull that data to know what goes into those specific numbers.
And what about next year? Do you have that? It just seems like 2 years in a row, a pretty significant.
Sure. I think it'd be worthwhile to actually look at the data, and I'll give some context around how we budget for capital, because capital projects, as everyone knows, aren't constrained by fiscal year, but they do go into the fiscal year budget. So when we're looking on a bond program that's, $1 billion program, what the team does is they put together a cash flow that can then be kind of broken out, like we'll take this snippet, and then that's what goes into the budget. That snippet, that cash flow, doesn't break out the services the way that goes into the budget. So then the budget team allocates that cash flow into the cost categories in the budget book. So one of the reasons I need to pull that data, because that's not how we see the data that we give to budget. That's how budget kind of reflects it back, if that makes sense. I know it's very confusing.
I guess it'll be interesting to see how you categorize it? If the budget document is not the document that provides like an accurate summation of what actually is in that category?
So I can jump in here as part of the budget development state. Anything that was underspent this year in bond on those services because of any delay in our spending would be included in next year's budget. So it really is a snapshot in time for that year, what we think may be spent in those areas, and that would be anything in that area outstanding from the 2020 bond authorization and also the 2025 bond. We have assumed in our appropriation levels that that bond on the May ballot will pass, so giving that highest level of flexibility in spending on the bond program.
I'm gonna just comment on that a little bit. I guess it'd be helpful when we're talking about the budget to actually see at least a little bit more itemization on what we're spending our dollars on versus just a big number. I mean, it's hard to ask questions if we don't know where the money is going.
Yeah, certainly. In the budget document, it does follow the format required by the state for local budget law. So we are hitting that and trying to be...
That's great for the state, but we know the state don't care about us anyway. So we might have to do a little bit more for us in order for us to be able to look at our budget and see what we can do with our budget.
Thank you.
So just along just the bond lines, in the presentation last week or the PowerPoints, it has at a high level that it's anticipating, this budget document anticipates that the bond this May will pass. And I'm wondering what in the this document, it also talks about seismic improvements. What specifically is been committed next year in terms of seismic improvements?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that.
If the bond is passed.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to answer that.
I'm just going to say, because the document from last November, there was a staff example about how to spend the 190, and it had essentially 1 to 2 schools and $5 to $10 million in seismic improvements. So I'd love to see where there's a seismic dollars this next year, or what the plan is.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I also appreciate all of the testimony and families that have been messaging, as well as those who are here. You know, it's extremely important to us to make sure that all of our buildings are safe for not only our students, but our staff as well. So in the latter part of last year, so in late 2024, we signed a contract with an engineering firm to complete a high-level assessment and identify seismic deficiencies in each and every one of our schools, and provide a rough order of magnitude and the cost to correct the deficiencies in each of our school buildings. So we're anticipating that that report will be out this summer, and we feel like that is an essential step in the process of defining the scope of work that we have in front of us for all of our buildings. We know that in most of our facilities, we've had seismic work done on roof, and we've had it in some other places for the internal infrastructure. And we know with the changing codes and more information that comes out, we fall out of compliance every time there's a new code. And so really having an engineering firm come in and give us costs and a state of where we're at will be our first step. And then once we have that, we can begin to allocate funds. In our bond right now, we know that we have between 200 to 300 million roughly, and also that increases as we find costs in the high schools to put towards priority scope programs. And so we deem any building that comes back as unsafe, like seismic, as one of those high priority areas, as well as some areas around heating and cooling. I will say that we also have information that All of our buildings that were in poor condition with seismic issues have had at least some work done, not all in all areas, which is why we're bringing in this engineering firm to help us assess all of our buildings. So that's where we're at now. And so when we have that report in the summer, we'll be able to know exactly the work that's ahead of us and what the costs are so that we can allocate funds.
Great, I appreciate that answer, and I'd be interested, and I think it would be helpful for the community to see a copy of the contract, just so we understand the scope of work of what's coming. So.
I don't understand how you're saying you're going to give it to us in the summer, but we're voting on the bonds in 3 weeks. Like, you just want us to trust you? You want a blank check? That we're just going to wait and trust the gathering to start? There's no trust. There hasn't been trust for years. Mr. Young, I've emailed you so many times and you've never once engaged. There is no trust. You need to tell us more than what you're currently telling us.
Yeah, so we are prepared to bring some more information at the May board meeting that spells out a little bit more of what that scope of work is, an estimated completion date in the summer. I mean, I would love to be able to sit here and say we're putting $200 million towards seismic issues when, which, you know, sounds good and feels good, but would be inappropriate without the data that tells us exactly where we need to allocate those funds and what impact it will provide. So, I mean, I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I think what I'm looking for, because that's all the one person I can speak for, is a more defined process of how we're going to approach that, because I know in the $190 million that was initially outlined at one of the facilities meetings, Dan laid out kind of here's the process by which we would spend the money, with, like, you know, emergency repairs kind of being the first tranche, and then there was a whole host of other things underneath that. And I think that needing the specificity of, like, here's the approach we're going to have, and it's different from the last several bonds, because the last several bonds, everybody knew that, well, we told people, and we did, we're going to go out again in 4 years. So there was, people had a sense of, like, here's what we're going to do over the next 4 years, and then there'll be another bond, and we're going to prioritize again. And in this case, there's not that specificity of here's what we're going to do, and then also it's a much longer bond. And so that is what I think the specificity of how we get there, and I really appreciate your leaning into this, Superintendent Armstrong.
Oh, absolutely. Anything that's about keeping our students safe, I'm going to lean into. I think our process is making sure that we have the report back that tells us the magnitude of the work that needs to happen in our buildings, and then bringing that to the board for the vote, which rests with the board on how and when, or just the prioritization of that list. We'll definitely put forth a recommendation for the board to take action, revise, or give input on, and then we'll be ready to lean into the work. Once we have that vote from the board, we'll be able to put that timeline and be realistic, because honestly, there's some of our buildings that are in such a state that it may be a complete tear down and rebuild, right? And so we would want to know that. I think Beverly Cleary may be one of those sites that, with some of the work that needs to be done, could be a complete replacement for that school. And I think that's information that you all would want to know at the end of our, when we have our assessment report back in the summer.
The thing is, we have data from from earlier studies, so we have a general sense, and we know what works has been done. And I think that's the frustration, is that we have a sense, and we've got on our website sort of here's what the risk is, and we also know what work has been done. I think additional information is useful, and also the sense of, once the bond passes, there's not the sense of we know what it is that's going to be actually in this bond. So that's, I think, what people are looking for.
So what the engineering company will give us, and just to give you an example, the extent of the seismic deficiencies, the cost to resolve the seismic deficiencies, the location of seismic deficiencies, and what I mean by that is are we talking classrooms, assembly spaces, boiler rooms, et cetera? Also looking at the age of school, location of school, size of school, schools that are not likely to be consolidated, should that be a thing. Schools that, to get the seismic work done, will need to be housed temporarily and what that plan is. And then if there's other work that need to be completed along with the seismic. So that's the information that we're expecting to get back this summer, which is more detailed than what we have right now.
Okay, I'm sorry, but if you have comments, please email those in. I'd love to hear it.
Well, it's,
Let me just say a couple.
This is a
All
board
right, Director
business
Hollins?
meeting, so we can't just have outbursts.
So let me just say my piece on this. You know, when we, and I hope and I wish Dan would really say what he really wants to say sometimes, instead of just, you know, adhering to what he thinks the board want to hear. I hope you get the courage to really just give your true recommendations, because I hear them in private. I wish you would say them in public, because when we talked about this stuff a couple years ago, when we was doing the whole bond piece and we was coming up with the amount of the bond at that time, it was around $2.8 billion or something. This was the reason why. It was because we had $1 billion worth of deferred maintenance. We had seismic problems with our schools. We had heat, cold, rat, mold in our school. And this was one of the reasons why we had a bond that was higher, even though it wouldn't have cost more money on the it wouldn't have raised taxes more. And so we had this information. This is not new information. Everybody on this board knew that information. And so when we came back and reduced the bond, then we automatically knew we were going to have to reduce the work that we was going to be able to do on our schools for our children. So it's frustrating for me to see, and I've said this before, when we talk about our kids, we need to make sure that we are being truthful, transparent, honest when it comes to our kids. We need to make sure that we are doing everything and we can for our kids. And I said this before, I believe, and I still do to this day, that folks would do whatever, spend how much ever they needed to spend in order to make sure their kids are protected. Because when you talk about kids and you talk about the things that they need, parents will bend over backwards, parents will die for their kids in order to make this stuff happen. So it's frustrating that we're talking about, well, what we're going to do now when we had the opportunity to do it then, and to make sure we had a bond that could address these issues that we're talking about now. And now we're trying to slice up a little, even smaller part of a pie and say, okay, well, we want to focus on our kids. I get it. Once again, the issue is making sure we have a plan, making sure that we have a process to make sure that we're addressing our kids' needs where we're at now. We all knew 1.8 was not going to get us there. Everybody who was here last year knew that. This was not a secret. And yet we decided to go with 1.8 because we was listening to polling and not necessarily listening to what our really kids needs. And I understand people feel, well, polling tells us, give us an idea on if something's going to pass or not pass. We don't know if this bond will pass now, and we're still talking about little money. I would rather for us to be talking about $2.8 billion not passing, whether there's $1.8 billion, and it's still, we're in the same predicament, it still might not pass. So, moving forward, my goal, and I told Dr. Armstrong, and I sent it to Director Vermette, was a resolution to come up with a plan on how we're going to do with the seismic, it's going to be a seismic resolution to how we're going to deal with this with the limited funds that we have. But once again, I hope the next bond that we go after, next bond that happens, I hope we really look at the potential of what really we need to do for our kids versus what it looks like or feels like politically.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, just really quick, but I just want to kind of remind the board, right now, we are convened as a budget committee, so we should be focused on talking about the 2025-26 proposed budget. When we talk about the bond, we need to schedule a separate time for that. Okay, so thank you. Director
I brought it
Split,
up
and
in
then I'll
the
have
context, the actual.
Director Split, and then I'll have Director Green.
The bond is in the
Yeah.
next year's budget.
I'm going to just make a comment, and I know it might not be germane, but I'll keep it quick. So I just, first of all, want the parents in the room to know that my child, both of my children actually, two, are in an unreinforced brick masonry building in Portland, okay? So I'm on the team. I'm here to help. I hopefully will still be here after the May election and will be committed to working with all of you going forward. I wasn't here when the bond passed out in January. When I first started, I got appointed a week later, and I did a deep dive on the bond, understanding the history. One thing that we're getting a lot of grief about is the flexibility in the bond. And I see frustration with that flexibility. But actually, those of us in the room with kids in unreinforced brick masonry buildings are lucky there's that flexibility, because we can still get it taken care of, but we need to pass the bond, or else we will then have to do a new bond, which will have potentially a harder time passing or a different time passing. But if we pass this one, we have the resources. You have someone like me here promising to help move the ball forward from a board perspective who has kids in those buildings. So I just wanted to make sure you all know that. I have no issue at all supporting the bond. I've been knocking doors and talking to people and hearing that they're going to vote no because of the seismic issue. And I'm like, holy cow, we will actually get the money we need to take care of the seismic issue if you pass it. So we need to pass it, and then I understand you want the pledge and the promise now. That can't happen other than this type of promise of somebody like me saying, I promise to continue to fight for us and for you and for our kids on this topic. But if we don't pass the bond, then we won't have the money that we need available for us to spend for this purpose. So I know you can't just yell, you can't yell from the audience. I'm sorry, but like I'm here for you, and I want you to believe that there are people that you can trust. And I understand that you don't right now, but I want to try to change that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director
Okay.
Split. Director
So
Green?
I do have go ahead. I do have a budget question, though.
Okay, can we go to Director Green? I'll go to you
Go
next.
ahead.
Thank you.
I want to.
Oh, it's hard to speak with him next to you.
I actually want to come back to the, but I don't know if it's a budget. It's about the contract and who's doing the scope of work. Is that something that we already have? And then who's going to be managing that? Because my concern with it, as anybody that knows me is going to know, I asked for an audit back in October, and then it got pushed to November, and then it got pushed to February, and then it just kept getting pushed. So I think I'd like to know in this one, if we're going to have this, what office is responsible for it, and then how do I get to hold them accountable? Because if we're going to be able to see it, whenever it is that we're going to be able to see it, then I don't want to keep kicking the can. And so I'm really interested in accountability in that regard.
I appreciate the question. We will have information at the May meeting. I think May 6th, we can be prepared to have some details further on the work with the engineering company.
Can we get
Thank
that
you.
sent tomorrow, just so we have that as a baseline and not wait till?
Yeah,
the
I'll work
6th?
with staff, and we will try and get that to you as soon as possible. I'm noting, though, that the preference is for tomorrow, so I will make sure that we can get that as soon as possible. And then I just wanted to say, because I just appreciated Director Split's word about flexibility, and then just kind of noting in there when you talk about flexibility, I think you're saying that, like, if we allocated like 20 million towards seismic versus having this pot of priority projects, no matter how big a scope may be or how much it costs may be, we're still able to cover issues for those individual schools as opposed to be limited to a certain amount, correct? Is that what you were talking with the flexibility?
I think so.
Okay, great.
Let's just go with that.
Perfect, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thank you. Director Hollins.
I know, but Patty, you had a question too.
Director Sullivan.
Director Sullivan had a question.
I didn't really have a question, but I have talked to Dan today about the seismic stuff. And last week, I watched the BAC, the Bond Accountability Committee, talking about what they've already done with a lot of the seismic and handicapped and lots of things that the last bond was for. And sometimes I think we don't realize how much we are doing in the background. I don't think, I mean, I didn't know when I watched that BAC meeting. I thought, wow, I didn't know all that was going on, or I kind of knew it was, but I didn't see how wonderful it was. So I feel like Dr. Armstrong is getting kind of hammered for not doing stuff, and Dan's getting hammered for not doing stuff. The stuff is happening. And I do think we have to be more specific about what's happening. We have to let people know. We have to say, yes, this bond does have to pass if we're going to do anything we want to do. But it does frustrate me that sometimes people don't realize what is happening. So I guess that's it. It's just, we are doing stuff. We're not just sitting here. Well, I am. But people in the district are doing an awful lot of stuff.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
No,
Director Hollins?
I'm saying it wasn't reactive. I'm saying, no, I understand. Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, shh. I'm sorry, but for the audience, if you have, we want to hear your words. This is not the right format. Please email us your comments. Thank you. Director Hollins.
Okay. That's not going to, you hollering out, it's not going to get anything done either.
Budget question, please.
Yes, I had a budget question. I had a couple. One, I'm looking at Fund 220. Can you elaborate what the transfer funds are? Because it looked like it went from 16,515 to 41,756.
Can you reference the page number?
It was, Fund Fit 22, I can't. I don't have my glasses, so these numbers is really small. The 522, oh gosh. I've seen it referenced on a couple pages. The transfer funds. It was.
We can't hear each other very well up here. Could you say that?
Yeah.
Can you ask your
I was
question?
asking a question about Fund 5200. It's transfer of funds, and it went from 16,515 to 41,756 for 25-26. I was just curious what that was. And then the other one I have is about the PERS rate stabilization. That's on page 118, and that's Fund 225. And I didn't see the drawdown that I think that was talked about as far as drawing down that to offset the PERS obligation that we have.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. We are planning to fully use the PERS Reserve Fund, which is 225, and that would be through an interfund transfer, which is an expenditure or requirement out of Fund 225. And then on the revenue part of the general fund, you would see an incoming transfer. So those two things should align fairly closely. There may be a little difference in the value if there are additional transfers coming into the general fund.
So are we drawing it all the way down? Because at the last conversation, I thought we was only drawing half of that down.
No, when we proposed the budget, I shared with you that we had some fairly high-risk assumptions going into it, and one was that we're fully expending the PERS reserve in 25-26. And so the use of those one-time funds to balance the 25-26 budget, they're not going to be available in 26-27. And so that's as we start to look further out, we see that gap and how it's growing.
So would that put us at risk for 26, 27?
Yes, yeah.
Do we know how much that risk is?
We know at a minimum, because we have so many large variables right now, we know at a minimum it's about $32 million.
Well, I mean, just from the PERS obligation.
Oh, yes, it's about the same amount, actually. The increase in PERS was about $33, $34 million each year of the biennium. That's due just to the increase on top of the PERS rates that we're already paying.
So we're going to draw down the $22 million now in PERS obligation, and then next year, how are we going to offset that?
That's what's creating a big part of the budget gap in 26, 27.
So wouldn't it make sense for us to maybe draw down less and look for other ways to tighten our belts now than waiting until next year?
So that would mean, if I may just jump in here, Director Hollins, that would mean that there would be more reductions that we would need to make across the board. And I think, as you've heard from community and staff, which of course was difficult to hear, the impacts of those said reductions. And so we decided that first, make sure that we're able to present a balanced budget, and then B, look at some of those reductions that we can make next year. And so we're starting first inwardly, again, looking at some of those contracted services, renegotiating contracts. We've had quite a bit of overspend in maintenance and transportation, and not, for mismanagement or anything like that, but, we're transporting more kids as required by law for our kiddos with IEPs. Maintenance, that deferred maintenance comes with a cost when we're not addressing it, and we have to repair more. And so some of those expenditures have put us over. And then, of course, just all the other things that we've said about rising costs and not having the revenue to address them. So,
So you mentioned overspend, that we have overspent our budget, I'm assuming, this year.
based on when I say overspend, it's based on what our starting set budget was for an area. Like transportation is one of them, I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I think last I heard we were about 5 million over in transportation, and there's some legal requirements with transportation. Now, I know that we get reimbursed 70% from the state, but even that 30% that we planned on paying is significantly over than what we had planned, right? And then we also had some one-time funds that were allocated, like through the county office, that was 5 million. We won't have those funds in the next year. So, of course, when you have these funds allocated and you're planning the use of those, and then it's no longer there, it's a reduction. So there's a variety of things. And then the other thing I'll say with the PERS account, so every year except for last year, there were funds that were, I shouldn't say every year, there were several years in a row where previous administration had put funds into this account to be able to address the PERS, that we expected to see. Last fiscal year, there were no funds put in, and I assume that probably with a fund balance of 5%, and the reductions that were happening, they just weren't able to afford to do it. So we're actively looking at how we can begin to build that back up, but just noting, I don't know if you heard that last year, but yeah, there were no set aside, and so we're pulling off from previous years.
Okay, so I'm just a little confused. So if we're going to be in a budget deficit next year, how are we going to be looking to add funds to the PERS bank if we're going to be having reductions next year? And then other question is, I know you said when we make reductions now, it doubles next year. So I'm just saying, could we potentially look for additional cuts this year that's going to double for the next biennium? So that way, when we're looking at next year's cut, it won't be as detrimental.
Right, so it's a double when it's an ongoing expense. When it's a one-time, right, then we only count it once, and it doesn't address our structural deficit. And so when I say putting funds aside, I mean, it's extremely important that we get right-sized as soon as possible so that we can adequately fund the things that we need to fund, and we don't be in this space of not being able to put away for any spikes in PERS or any other things that may happen that we don't have funds for, and then we have a fund balance that's locked at 5% through that direction. There is no other space to pull funds from. So part of our budgeting is being able to set some funds aside so that we're able to be covered in those instances.
Okay. And then Fund 522 was on page 25. But it's all throughout the document, so it could be 25, it could be somewhere else. It's interfund transfers.
Yeah, that's on a summary page. So the front part of this document is going to be kind of rolled up into more summary versions of the data that you'll find in the financial section, which gets a little bit more granular. Not as granular as you would like, I learned tonight, but that's just kind of how the document is laid out. So it is showing the same number again in this section.
Right. So what is that? Because it looked like it goes from 16 million to 41 million proposed for 25, 26.
Yeah, this page on page 25 represents all funds. And so in that, for that object, we have funds coming in to the general fund, which is a transfer of that $23 million from the PERS reserve. But we also have funds transferring out of the general fund into a reserve account that is for some of our insurance needs.
Okay.
And again, that's kind of further back in the book in detail, but this is, because it's all funds, it's showing transfers going both ways.
Okay, thank you.
I have a just process question. So I submitted a whole host of questions that obviously I'm not going to go through tonight. When will I get those? Because there's so few limited forums before we're asked to, I mean, I know there's approval and then adoption, but for example, next week we're getting the community budget review. Will we have answers to, and I don't know what other people have submitted, answers to board questions that have been submitted before next week?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. We actually have made some movement on those questions. You know, of course, our goal is always 24 hours, but what we're not able to cover.
There was a few.
Okay.
I'm saying I understand why that you wouldn't have it in 24 hours.
Yes, the goal though is by the end of this week for all, and if there are any delays, we'll let you know. But I think we're on track with being able to get that document, at least the first draft of the ones that we were able to answer, back to you by tomorrow, and then we'll just keep updating as we go. And we got all the notes about the page note, and appreciate the specific request to be able to track alongside the budget book. So we're going to do that as well.
And I was wondering, could those answers to those questions be circulated with the board?
Oh, absolutely. I think Director Burnett-Edwards copied everyone on it, and so we will send it back out in that format. We'll reply all.
And available to the public as well?
Oh, anything we answer and we send an email is available to the public.
Great.
Well, it was 1,002 questions. I have one more question too. It's on page 88. It's fund. Oh gosh, I need my glasses. 512100 and then 522200. I think that's right. Is that right?
Yeah, 512200.
Okay. So it's nice to have somebody with glasses too. It looked like it's substitutes. So when you talk about right sizing, so it looked like we spent, is that 11 million? We budgeted for 24-25, and you're looking at another $11.2 million for 25-26. Is part of the right sizing to help eliminate some of those costs for substitutes?
I'm sorry, say that object code again. I missed that.
It's 512100 and 512200. It's licensed and classified substitutes. In 24-25, we budgeted $11.4 million, and then for 25-26, is budgeted for, proposed budget for $11.2 million. And I'm just wondering, with the right sizing that we're talking about doing, is that going to help relieve some of that cost for substitutes? So that could be there could be a significant savings right there as well when we talk about budgeting.
Yeah, thank you, Director Hollins, for the question. Yes, as we reduce FTE, we also reduce the amount of subs that we are going to be using, because those positions won't be requiring subs if the staff are gone. Ideally, our staff would be with our kids always, but in the case of a substitute, if there's a reduced number of positions, the kind of ratio of substitutes that we would require would also be less.
So just going by here, you're looking to have possibly $200,000 less next year. Is that based on the budget cuts of FTE, or is there going to be more realized with the budget cuts that we're having?
This is our plan based on the data we have today. So we're planning for some savings there, but we won't be able to tell you until we're through the year how close we are to that in that line item.
Because I need this explained. On page 105, up at the top, 512-100 and 512-200, again, it's substitutes, licensed and classified, but here it goes way up from 24-25 to 25-26.
205 represents the grant funds. So those are, they're usually targeted grant dollars. So this isn't part of our regular operating budget.
Okay.
This is based on what we foresee needing on behalf of those grants for both FTE and for professional development, for example.
Okay, so it would be paying for subs for a particular thing.
Yeah, Fund 205
Not for
represents
absent.
a whole bunch of grants, and we have more detailed information that's not in here, but I'm happy to get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Another quick
I had
question,
similar
and I'm
questions
done.
about the substitutes as well, so thank you for asking, Director Hollins.
I just got one more question for right now. With the substitute pool that we approved, what kind of savings would that, or what kind of savings are we projecting with that? I think we did a resolution to have a substitute pool. What is the projected savings from that?
I think I need to get with my HR colleagues again to really look at that resolution and see what the context was. I wasn't here for that, but I'm happy to look into that and give you more information.
Okay. We don't have HR here?
No. Nope. We do not have Chief Reese here tonight. But we can get back to you on that. Luckily,
Okay.
we have multiple.
I'm just saying, we know we're having a budget conversation. I would assume that the person from HR would be here as well.
Noted.
We are scheduled till 9. I just want to make sure that everyone has had a chance to ask a question. Who still has a question? Well, I saw your big list of questions and it covered a lot of mine, so I'm waiting for that document too. So thank you for submitting that. All right, if there are no more, unless you had one more question?
I guess this is just just philosophical, because I don't know what the answer is going to come back on the print shop, but I'm curious overall, because I don't think I'd want to find this out next week. Are there any other services that are planned on being contracted out? I was looking at the materials that's also for the May 6th on the Profit Education Center, and I'm noticing there's a pretty significant reduction in the space for the trades, including the music shop, and I'm wondering, is anything contemplated in this budget of contracting out any services for this next fiscal year?
There isn't a plan. Let me think about that question. There isn't a plan. I know that there's the one that we talked about, language access, where we had two things, right? We had a pool of staff, and then we also had an agency that provides services during the day and after hours, and it's accessed more. And so that was one of the reasons why we leaned more into contracted services as opposed to direct hires. As I'm searching my brain, I can't think of an instance where we are ending a program and service and then planning on contracting that out.
Yeah.
I can't speak, though, if there aren't maybe individual hours or some partial support that may be brought in to lift up a body of work. I think that would be hard to say at this point, but I can't think of a program or service that's ending and then the plan to restart with an outside agency.
Yeah, and I guess when we get that list of the positions that are being reduced that we discussed, maybe that will, because for example, language access, I don't think we're just not going to do it, so is that actually then going to be a contracted out service? I mean, that's the type of things when I look at that list that I would ask, is like, are we just stopping it, or are we actually going to have it done by somebody other than a PPS employee? So
well, and just a note on that, because I want to answer that. That's a really good question. So listening to Chief Gross's comment in the dollars, and I hope you all heard that, 80% of our interpretation and translation services is by the outside agency that costs us under $200,000. And the other 20% are by our staff. That's costing us about $400,000, right? And so, so it's an agency that our staff at sites and even a district office access already. So it's not a new model. It's more of a let's just lean into this model, and also because we do have employees on site that provide a similar service. So not only were we looking at, cost efficiencies, but we were also looking at duplicated services and where we can make sure that we tighten up the belt in some of those areas.
Yeah, I say when I see the list, I'll have a better sense of what questions I want to ask, because, and then I would like to have sort of maybe like a little bit of a dissection of the print shop. Because, I mean, I want to see what the costs actually turned out to be, but it was really, this was going to be some big cost savings, we didn't need it, and now to find out we're actually just going to have another school district do the work, and that actually we're paying more for it. So I'm going to want to just dive into that a little bit, because like literally when I look through the materials for the 6th, it seems like the reduction in space for the trades, and then some mention that other districts, for example, contracted out their music repair, led me to believe that may be contemplated. So, like I say, I don't think there's anybody who works at PPS whose job isn't in service in some way to our students. So just knowing what that looks like and who's going to be providing it is going to be important for me.
Yes, we will. I'm sure that we'll be able to access information from last year and then some of those impacts that happened this year and why we need to potentially look at a change in service.
I just about quick, my only question was about, well, not only, but the one I'm going to ask tonight, about the language access. Has there been work or identifying, I don't even know if there's a pathway, so I guess my question is there a pathway, for example, like, it sounds like there's some structural barriers in terms of like utilizing our in-house for more effectively, more efficiently. Again, this is just from outside, I don't exactly know the ins and outs, but my question is, and you don't have to answer tonight if this may take some time to kind of look into, but are there any structural changes that we could do, whether that's relooking at the in-house contracts or systemic barriers that could bring more reliance on our in-house for less expense? Anyways, or even if there's a pathway to do such a thing. So I'm just curious if that has been explored or still needs to be, or is there even a pathway?
Well, one of the things that the language access company allows is access to individuals in different, outside of the typical work schedule. And so when we have employees, right, in an 8-hour day, unless we're finding ways to cover overtime, we just don't have that same access. And so when we have evening events or things happening on weekends, or maybe there's something that's early in the morning, maybe outside of, the individual that's responsible for translation or interpretation of that specific language, with more individuals available to provide that service for a lower cost, it's tough to then compare. I think, but like everything, this is our proposal, and, we bring forth for your consideration. We believe that we've done all the work that we can do to present a proposal that will allow us to get into the next year and start examining further reductions and not, completely turn some of our services and programs upside down. But there's some real impacts. When I hear from individuals about the core enrichment, some of the decisions that were made in the previous year and the impacts carrying over to this year, there's some significant concerns with that, right? And it's like, with all of these things, how do we figure out what to save? And so through our conversations, it's like staying focused on the priorities and figuring out what best we can do to protect classroom instruction, our support staff, our teachers, and all those who provide essential central services in a way that's going to move learning forward. And not saying that some of those services that were reduced wasn't moving learning forward, but we know that we couldn't move everyone into the 25-26 school year.
Thank you for that.
I have a couple questions, last ones, promise. One is clarity, because I've been hearing about the funding of the senior, the two positions. Can we get a net cost of what that is, so we can get so our public can get a clear understanding of actually how much that actually costs us? Because we have two internal employees, they're going to a different position. Can we know what that net cost is, as well with the savings of not filling that other position that the employee has taken on the additional role? So I just wonder what that net is, so that way the public can understand if it's $30,000, that's really more, because when we put it out there as 200, people think, oh, we're adding two more $200,000 positions, when that's not the case. So if we can get that. And then the other thing is the print shop. Are we looking at possibly bringing that back in if it's going to save us money? Because sometimes, as a business owner, you make a mistake. You're like, you know what? My bad. That didn't work out. Let's do something different. Is that an option if that could save us additional dollars?
What's not an option? I don't know. I'd have to check with the team on the exploration of that. I think, as you probably know, our chief of technology, I'm trying to think of the title, our chief technology officer and our, thank you, information tech, our chief and our senior director are no longer with Portland. They both left in the middle of this school year, and so I know they were here and key in making that recommendation last year. And so moving forward this year, we do have an interim. We have Deborah in the back who is helping, and so that is certainly a question that I can bring to her and the team. I think most of us weren't here for that decision last year, but that doesn't mean that we can't explore it and find out. I heard some questions tonight from you all, and we'll definitely have a conversation and bring back more information.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. The board will now recess itself from the meeting as the Budget Committee. Our next regular meeting of the board will be held on Tuesday, May 6th. Thank you all for being here. This meeting is adjourned.